wanted you to know, Greg, that, okay. Hi, I'd like to call this, are we on? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the subcommittee of the Neary Building Committee, who was charged with the direction to engage applicants for the owner's project manager. Each of the subcommittee members has in fact received proposals from 9 different companies. Over the weekend, we all read them all and culled them down to 4 to interview today. The process will be that we are interviewing all 4 of them within a given period of time with a set schedule of questions that were created by the school department specific to the Neary Building Committee and the project. So we'll go through each of the questions. The questions will be shared on, is it going to be online, Becky?
I thought it would be easier if I emailed them to them and just we let them know that I'm going to send it to their contact person.
Okay. I felt that the questions in some fashion are complex or compound sentences, and it would be difficult to ascertain in one, listening exactly how much we wanted in that one question. So that they will be given the questions. At the conclusion of each of the interviews, then I believe the committee should ask questions, and then we'll move on to the next one. And then at the end of that, we'll have a discussion amongst ourselves, and then we need to put it to a vote. Jason is abstaining again from this. He's recusing himself on a conflict of interest. So it's just the 4 of us making a decision tonight. And I guess the first one that we are bringing in, I'm going to hopefully say I say this correctly, is Skankus. Did I or did I not?
Skanska.
Okay, look. Skanska. Sounds like a
Skanska.
Sounds like a Swedish company, doesn't it?
Does.
A Swedish name. So Becky, how are we going to do this? Are you going to let them in? Are they available? We could get started, or?
We had told them 3:15 because we had the 15 minutes allocated for the committee to take care of business. So I don't see any attendees right now.
Okay, we actually have, I'm sorry.
Well, should we talk about reducing Jason's salary as chair because he's missing all these meetings? I mean, should we cut it in half, maybe 2/3 off?
Yeah, I love, that's a beautiful comment, because somebody actually asked me yesterday, do you get paid for that? I go, what are you, nuts? Paid? Are you kidding? No, there's no pay.
Roger, we're going to add it to your school committee pay. So you're going to get a little bit of a raise this year.
Excellent.
Roger, do you get paid? Because when I was on the school board, I never got a penny. So if you're getting paid, I think that's wonderful.
It's huge. I can tell you, Denise, it's huge. It's huge. I actually,
zero.
I actually, no. There's actually an amount.
$500.
I'm sorry?
$500.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Well, if I had known that, I'd have kept it. But the way I analyzed or I evaluated whether I should keep it is I went through the process of what I would actually have to do to, put in all the employment papers and then deal with, the whole process. And I said, that's going to cost me more than I think I'm getting. Plus, I was able to donate it to somebody. Did I donate it to your salary, Greg? Who ended up getting, or Becky? I would not feel bad if I donated it to Becky. Okay, then I would feel very good, but I'm not sure it made it there.
That's funny because I never got a penny when I was on the school board. So I think that's wonderful, and that you donated is even better. Becky just wanted, you want to talk about the scoring sheets? Is that what you wanted to speak about?
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah, so I believe, Denise, you had sent out the scoring sheets to everyone. With the questions?
Yes,
Okay.
I did.
So
received those earlier, about an hour ago.
Okay. So I think, my thought is on these sheets, if you can make copies for each of the firms and then tally your, thoughts in that right-hand corner under score. And then I think after we're done with the 4 interviews, then you can read off to me what your scores are. And then we'll do the same thing. I created a tally sheet I can share with everyone that combines both the results that we had for the RFS as well as whatever we have for results for the interview. So we'll be able to combine those and come up with at least a scoring system as we talk about them.
Okay, does everyone want to take a couple of minutes to copy them? I have to run to another room to copy mine. Anybody else? I'll take a second.
Becky,
I'll electronically copy mine.
I just did that. Move or copy, create a copy. What's the order?
The first is Skanska.
Yeah.
Then
Which is a Swedish company, by the way.
yes, yeah. I picked up the thumb drive they sent. Next is Vertex.
Okay.
Then it is Hill, and then finally Colliers. And I did put names in a bowl and had my husband draw names.
Is your husband right-handed or left-handed? Because there's a propensity on how they draw.
I did find it interesting that the folks that were scored the highest were, at least in the order that I get, were all in a kind of a group. They, I had them, it was the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th out of the 9. So I thought that had nothing to do with my scoring, but I did find it curious, I guess. And $1 won't buy you a cup of coffee anymore, I don't think so.
Becky, I know we're not doing an RFQ, but did we get any preliminary kind of rate cards for any of these companies? I'm just worried that one is 2 or 3 times more expensive than the other, or are they just kind of?
No, the process with MSBA is once we've selected one of the vendors, then we will negotiate with that vendor individually.
Okay.
We're not allowed to get any of the pricing up front.
And I think Jason mentioned to me that a good thing would be to make them aware of the fact that if they are selected and the negotiation fails, then the second in line would begin negotiations with us. And would they would then take over immediately in negotiations.
I guess we didn't need 15 minutes.
Well, it's always helpful to have more time than less.
That's for sure. It's going to be a long 4
That's-
hours anyway, so.
Plus, with Roger's late arrival, we lost some time.
It's a good thing he's on mute right now.
Doesn't realize he's on mute.
On time arrival. And it sounds like you're making me sound like an airline. Okay, which is really, really mean-spirited.
Which with this week, I think that's a feat because I think everybody's got delays. So you're on time. That's a feat.
Actually, if I'm an airline, the fact that I arrived at all, I think is because that means I departed, that's a good thing. Incredible. I think we'll all be glad when this is behind us, this big piece, because this was a lot of work, guys. It
Appreciate
is
it.
a lot of work.
Mhm.
Well, the challenge for me in these Zoom meetings is I have, in my office, I do have 2 screens. I don't at my house, and I am back in my office. So, but you've got the screens where you can see people, you can see people's faces, and you can see anything that's shared. But then if I've got a document over, I'm looking over there, okay, instead of at the camera, or I move the document in front, and then I can't see whether I'm muted or not. So I still have to figure all this out after, 1,000 Zoom meetings.
The document's more important. Don't worry about what you look like on
I
camera.
think,
That's what
I think that that's
if you
probably,
watch any advisory meetings, they're all like this.
no, I agree. And I'll just expect somebody will say, you're muted if I have covered up my mute button.
That's too funny.
Well, I have to say, if you put up a document on the screen and I inadvertently do this, it's because I have to come within an inch of it to be able to read the darn thing. And I've done it on meetings. And I've had people chat with me on the side. What the hell are you doing? You take up the entire screen.
Pretty good.
It looks as though we do have Jim Burrows from Skanska in the waiting room.
Oh, good. Okay. Shall we ask him in?
Sounds good.
Vincent as well as Skanska.
Maybe we can ask Jim who else is part of his team.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, so C, Vinny and Jess Mendez will all be dialing in. Yeah. So should Vinny just called me, just making sure he had the right link. So I see C.
I just
Vinny's on his way. Yep, there we go.
Yep.
And Jim, you said Jessica as well?
Yes. Yep.
I'll look for her.
Okay.
There she is. I'll
Good afternoon, everybody.
promote her over.
Good afternoon.
Should we give her 2 more minutes? Because we did say 3:15.
She's here.
So we'll give-
Just promoted her.
Everybody
There we
here?
go. We
Perfect.
always allow 5 minutes for technical difficulties. So
Well, thanks for joining us. I'm Denise Eddy. I'm the vice chair of the building committee. And I just wanted to let you know the process that we used. We reviewed 9 companies. We pared them down on a meeting 2 days ago to 4 candidates. We chose those candidates at random. We did not use the interview process to rate them in any way. We sort of mixed them up and we had somebody sort of pull numbers, and that's how we created the schedule for today. We will begin with a list of questions. I'd like first that you introduce yourselves in a little bit, and then we have a list of questions to go over. And Becky is sharing those questions because I felt it would be better if you could actually see the question versus just, hearing it, because some of them are long questions. And then after that, the committee, which tonight there are only 4 of us, will ask questions of you. And then we will, I'll ask a few questions at the end and then we'll move on. We've allotted for your performance, we've allotted from 3:15 to 3:55. So all that we can get done hopefully in that amount of time. Becky?
Yes, Jim, I just wanted to let you know that I emailed those questions to your email address.
okay.
So I will turn the floor over to you to start with, or whoever is going to speak on your behalf, to introduce yourselves, and then we can start on the questions when you're ready.
Okay. And then how does our presentation fit in? Just
Right. Well, we have questions, so you could
Yeah.
probably do the presentation as long as we get other questions in, because we're going to pose the same questions to everybody.
Okay.
Becky, wasn't it we allotted 10 minutes for presentation and then we'll start on the
Right.
questions?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, we certainly can do that. Yeah, we planned on a fairly brief presentation just so that we can allow plenty of time for the questions as well. So, yeah, and hopefully, just spinning through the list here, I do think we'll probably hit a lot of the questions as we go through our presentation. So, Okay. Yeah, so if, I think Jess is gonna drive the presentation, so if you could just share.
I am ready to share my screen, Jim. I just need the host to allow me to share my screen, if that's possible.
And
Okay. Looks like.
Should be good now.
Let's see if this works. Shoot, I have dual monitors and it's a little. All right.
You're good.
There we go.
there we go.
Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so yeah, we can jump into this. So obviously, thank you for the opportunity. Sorry, if you go back to the first slide there. Yeah, so thank you very much for the opportunity. We're very excited about this project, and we're very excited to present today and have the opportunity to do so. We always like to hit on a couple of items, three themes that you'll see throughout the presentation that we see as are key to a successful project. First is building relationships. Obviously, that's with the school, the district, all the other stakeholders. Those strong relationships that we have carried through that are developed through feasibility, through schematic design throughout the project, the strong relationships we have with the project team during the project are absolutely critical to a successful project. Also community partnership, involving the community throughout the process. So that's again, through feasibility, through schematic design, getting to that yes vote, as well as carried on through construction, as you know, that when the community feels involved, it's a successful project, and getting to that yes vote is easier that way, obviously. And then leadership and communication. We as your OPM, we see ourselves as really driving the process and making sure that you are well informed, you're able to make decisions and have ample time for those decisions. So really being that, having that leadership and communication, be it with the project team, MSBA, all the different partners that we are working with, is also key to a successful project. So now if you just want to jump to the next slide, we can introduce ourselves. This is the core team. Dale wasn't available for today, but he is basically the principal in charge of the project, and overseeing us as a team. But as far as your core team that you will be dealing with on a day-to-day basis, that's the four that are on this call today. So in how the team is assembled is based on our specific experience compared to your project. And also obviously our capacity for where we are on other projects that we're working on. So that's the team and we really feel like we put forth the correct team for this project. And that's our ultimate goal every time, is to put together the right team for the right project. So as the project director, I will be your primary point of contact throughout the project. So my name is Jim Burrows. I'm a senior project manager, been with the company for 19 years. So we can just go around and introduce ourselves. So starting with C.
Good afternoon. My name is C. Nguyen, and I'm the project manager, and I'll be the day-to-day contact person between the design team, the CM, and facilities, and the liaison for the school. I've been with Skanska for 10 years.
So Jess.
Started talking and I was on mute. I'm sorry. Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica Mendez. I'm an assistant project manager, and I've been with Skanska for 7 years now.
And Vinny.
Yes, I'm Vinny Badabunker. I'll be the field manager for this project. I have over 50 years experience, 25 years of field experience as a carpenter foreman, superintendent, and another 25 years as the field rep as an OPM.
All right. So as part of Skanska, we have other resources, and these are all Skanska employees in various departments that we have. All are in-house. We can tap throughout the project for sustainability, estimating, scheduling, safety, all very important issues. And we can tap those anytime throughout the project as subject matter experts. And actually C is on here as one of the categories. Again, these are in-houses and are invaluable during key phases of the project. So we jump to the next. So our relevance experience, this is just a snippet of our relevance experience. And relevant experience, really what that brings to the table is our lessons learned, what we learned from all these projects, all the process that we went through with these. And it really allows our team to be ahead of issues and to be proactive and to limit surprises. And again, just unforeseen issues. So when we've seen it on another project, we can be ahead of it on the next. And really, that's the knowledge base that we bring forward. And all these projects, the group that's put in front of you has all had experience in these projects. So each project had unique challenges. However, there are always common themes among those projects that we can carry into your project. So if you jump to the next slide. So one of the key areas for this relevant experience, and lessons learned that are brought forth are phasing and logistics planning, really planning out the project to understand the key needs, the key challenges for the logistics, the site. With two schools on the same site, the planning of the phasing and logistics, be it new, be it renovation, or an ad reno, is really going to be important for the success of the project. So if you jump to the next slide. So I think the two bullets on either side of this for pre-construction and construction, everything below that is really the process that we go through, is minimizing impact to students, staff, and neighbors. We understand that no matter what model we go through with, if it's new construction, ad reno, or just a straight renovation, is going to impact the operation of the school. And we understand, and we make sure that everybody on the project understands that on the other side of that fence, or in that swing space that we're using, there's a learning environment, and we can't have any interruption to that. So how we do that is at the earliest stages when we're walking through potential phasing plans, potential building sites, is engaging the school. So that's the superintendent, the teachers, the facilities managers, engaging the town, police, fire, to walk through those so that we're really understanding how the school operates and how we're going to have to tailor our phasing, logistics, the whole planning of the project in order to have a successful project to minimize the impact on the students, staff, and neighbors. So once that plan is set in place, we then move forward into construction. And really at that point, it's about monitoring and making sure that we are keeping to our plan. And then once, and if there are changes, we can quickly react to them. If you jump to the next slide. So we do have Elsa, who is, she'll be on the periphery, but during key stages, we will definitely have her involved, be it lead, chips, basically all of your sustainability goals. So the design team is in control of a lot of those, but the upfront is where we are driving that process again. We're making sure that the sustainability goals that are set in the beginning of the project are really carried through. And Elsa's an invaluable goal that we can pull in to make sure that we're keeping the design team to task and that they're understanding what the ultimate goal is from a sustainability standpoint. Jump to the next slide. So with that, I'll turn it over to C.
Yes, thanks, Jim. So we put together an overall schedule, and these were the key dates. This is based on one options. And when we put this together, we checked out, what the MSBA board schedule is in your town meeting schedule based on what we see from what's on your website. This is a big project, and it's an important project with many stakeholders. And as Jim mentioned, we want to be driving the process, making sure that the district has enough time to review and make informed decisions, and also making sure that you guys know that when the decision needs to be made so as not to impact costs or schedule. Now, this will change after we go through the feasibility study to determine what's the best option, and also as design gets developed, and also when we have the CM on board. So next slide, Jessica. Budget. So in managing the budget, right, we start with putting out a budget that it's right. Like to do this, it means that we review, understand what's needed to be included in the budget. And as you can see here, this includes like FF&E, any hazmat unforeseen, construction contingency fees. And we also work on maximizing the reimbursement amount from MSBA for the district, and watching the budget and reviewing this for scope creep and reviewing change orders and making sure that additional work is what is the legitimate for the change, and also the district is only paying for what is fair and reasonable. We have a program, a budgeting program that we'll be using, and as part of that program, we have a dashboard, and at any time during the project, we can hit print and see where we stand in the project financially. If you want to jump to the next slide, Jessica. And also, as part of the tool to help us develop and manage the budget, we have an internal market trend. This is put together by Skanska, where we track the construction industry, not only on material costs, but also labor availability. We use this tool along with our in-house estimating department and our contacts with the industry to have understand where we are in the market, and so we can get to the right budget and making sure the budget is not too low where we have to go back to the committee to ask for more money, or too high where we can't get the project passed, and also that the change orders are fair and reasonable. Next slide. And as part of a successful project is assembling the right team. After selecting your PM, I might be biased, but I think Skanska is the right one. The next team that you're going to be selecting is the design team and also the CM. At Skanska, we value mutual respect, where everyone has contributions to make. Communication, where we make it safe for everyone to speak, and accountability. We make sure we do what we're going to say do, not only us, but the architects, the engineers, the CM. Also follow through, also important with the school district, in information that we need to make sure we get it timely, so we can solve problems as soon as possible. And then also we work on building loyalty, to the project, and we collaborate to solve the problems. This is not going to be a Skanska team or the AE team or the CM team, but it's going to be the NERI team. So pass it on to you, Vinny.
Oh, mute Vinny.
Thank you. I will be the eyes and ears of the project. My Skanska daily report is very comprehensive. I take photographs of all the major work taking place with comments underneath. My reports include safety, quality, manpower, schedule, and all inspection, testing, and site visits. These reports go to the Skanska team, the owner, and the architect on a daily basis. As far as the quality concerned, I am very familiar with the slide shown here. I have actually performed this type of work myself. Early career, I was a sheet metal superintendent, also a roofing superintendent. So I can spot mistakes or problems that occur in most any type of construction medium immediately. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, so communications. As we know, communications is a vital piece of a project, not only at the beginning of a project, but throughout the life of a project, starting with day one. That means starting off by forming a communications subcommittee, and that can include members from the building committee, district admin, the design team, excuse me, and Skanska, to name a few. By taking this collaborative approach, not only are you facilitating open communication and transparency with the community, but it also sets up the project in a way that is inclusive and there are no surprises. Also, hosting an opening house meeting, even before you hit boots on the ground, is also another way of exemplifying that getting to vote yes from day one is important. These meetings are great opportunities to educate the community on cost impacts of a no vote, schedule updates, construction progress, etc. But most importantly, I think it gives folks the opportunity to provide feedback and input. So we're capable to assist in the execution of said open houses. Another way we have facilitated open communication is through a project website, which is built and maintained throughout the life of the project. That means that all the information that has been funneled and it's been vetted, so any material posted is in the best interest of the project. On the other hand, we also have our in-house marketing team that can create handouts in a newsletter format, as you can see on the screen on the bottom right. That's an example at the Attleboro project. It's a newsletter that was printed and handed out to the community. Either one, they're great examples of ways that we have found have effectively maintained open communication with the community and abutters from day one.
All right, so the ultimate question, why Skanska? And quite simply, as I said in the beginning, we feel this is the right team for the project with the right experience. So all these items listed really are not just Skanska, but for each of the individual items. You know, the reputation of each of us, if you were to check all of our references and speak with people that work with us, I think we have developed a great reputation for successful projects. And we ultimately think, again, it's the right team for the right project. So that's why we ultimately think we are the best team for the project. So I think that's it for our presentation. So we can turn over to questions.
Okay. Based on did you by any chance, Jim, have the ability to bring the questions up? Do you have them?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So the first question is providing examples of projects your firm has managed that are similar in scope to the NERI project, including the building size, adherence to budget, adherence to schedule, a number of accidents and safety violations, and outcome of any legal action. Share examples of a project that went exceptionally well and projects with challenges and how you navigated and adhered to the budget and schedule in both of those situations.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a lot there. I'll give one, for instance, myself and Vinny are finishing up out in Acton Boxborough. So that project, they had very high sustainability goals and definitely had some budget challenges. At the beginning that we found a lot of ledge and that was an unforeseen condition. We were able to navigate through the balance of that project. And right now we're at the tail end of the project with some money remaining in the budget, and that's due to the management of the contingency throughout the project after that initial unforeseen in the beginning of the project. Also, just quite simply with the out there, we had a new septic system that had to go in. So we have experience there. We understand that the NERI school currently is on a septic system. So myself and Vinny have a lot of experience with that. So I think as far as, I think we could go on for a bit here. But I think as far as, a project that's fairly similar is Acton Boxborough for some of those challenges that you note. With safety, all I can say for safety is that we as a firm have a very high standard for our safety culture, and on any project, The first item that's brought up in any meeting is safety. So we want to make sure that we have are understanding the construction manager or GC's safety plan, and they're adhering to it. We are a partner in safety, and we really want to create a good culture of a safe project. I always say it's not a successful project if we have any lost time incidents on it. We want everybody to go home at the end of the day. And as far as legal actions, unfortunately, those do happen. I have had projects where we have some subcontractors or problem vendors. So really what that's about is making sure that the district, when you get to that, is well protected. So us as your OPM, on a certain project, we had all the documentation in place in order to protect the district. So I can't say too much more than that, but that's a specific case for some legal action on a project.
And 1B is providing an overview of your communication
Denise-
strategy.
Denise, could I just ask one probably
yes.
the
Yep.
easiest question of this interview is, Jessica, would you mind just stopping sharing the presentation? Thank you.
Oh, that's an easy one, yeah.
I think you've touched on this, but as far as a working relationship, could you give us a little bit of an overview of your communication strategy in all the phases of the project with all the stakeholders? I guess sort of how the communication is going to flow from you to everybody else.
Yep. So the key here is really setting up those correct lines of communication. So the first is, who is the point of contact? So the point of contact, everything will come through me to be it the SBC, be it the the school district, any town. And our mind of thinking is that the SBC should always be updated every step of the way. And what we do like to do and encourage is that we have some subcommittees, definitely a communication subcommittee. So that can be the external. So that's going out to the community, anything that has to go out, anything that comes up, developing that subcommittee, a finance subcommittee that goes through change orders, any big changes. And then ultimately, when it comes to the SBC, we're giving an update to the bigger group, but the finance subcommittee is, already aware of it. So I think the key to communication is making sure we understand where it's coming from and how it's going out. So for us, during the feasibility phase, anything will be your primary go-between with the MSBA. So again, it's all coming through my team and then through me to the MSBA, and then everything coming from the MSBA comes through me. And if my team has to do something, then I'm working with my team. And if the SBC has to be involved, then we're updating them. So really, it's open communication and making sure that everyone is aware at the correct time.
Okay. The next question is building code.
Denise, Greg has his hand up again. I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Greg. I didn't see it.
No, that was from before. So thank you.
And Andrew's running the Zoom and I'm, not paying attention. I apologize. Could you highlight for us the pertinent sections of the Mass Building Code that relate to this new school building project and describe the process you will take to address any uncertainties in the interception of the code or your interpretation of the code, and how you would work with state agencies as well as the town boards and committees to follow the town and the state code and bylaws.
So,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I can take this.
Sure.
You want, so, state code. So right now is we're looking to see, which section, which version of the building code. Probably we're gonna go into the next version, the 10. But we will go ahead and work with the design team to make sure that we are on the latest code. And we, during the design meeting, even until feasibility study, we're meeting with, we get the engineers involved and we get the building code official to make sure that, understanding what the local zoning, not only with, and then also any bylaws, any conservation commission. So we work with the town and with the design team to make sure that we follow the latest code.
Yeah, and one of our in-house resources, actually, Sandy McLeod, has written portions of the Massachusetts Building Code. And he is a great resource if we're having an issue. Out in Acton, Boxborough, we had a code issue with basically drainage in the elevator. So we're able to work through him, and he can really push things to understand the answers and get quicker answers. So again, he's just a great resource as well.
Okay, moving on to the fourth question. Please elaborate on the management style of your firm on projects of this scale, 90,000 square feet, a public construction or renovation, and describe a time where your firm used a structured approach to solve a problem or resolve a conflict in a timely manner.
Yep. So the management approach that we have is definitely a hands-on approach. Any issue we like to, obviously, when an issue comes up, our management approach is to make sure that all pertinent people that should be in the room discussing the issue are in the room. We definitely, on a project of this scale, time is of the essence. We have to be on top of issues and in front of issues. I think, being in front of issues is our management approach. We want to foresee them and make sure that the key decision makers are in the room. So a structured approach, I think as an example, we were building a high school, we had geothermal wells going in, and we came across some unforeseen contamination within the bedrock that was not shown in any soil data. It was our first geothermal test well. So obviously a big issue. Now, what we did there was, first, step one was to inform the SBC and say, we have this issue. We don't have a resolution yet, but we will need to meet in 2 weeks in order to discuss the issue. Within those 2 weeks, we looped in the DEP, we looped in Concom, we looped in, this actually had a separate agency that was managing just the contamination on the site, and the town manager, as well as some other town entities. So basically, we understood that we needed an SBC meeting, but we walked through, and by the time we got to the SBC meeting, we presented options. We said, we can do X, we can do Y, we can do Z, and here's the benefits, and here's the disadvantages of each, so that we're coming to you with options and not just an issue. We're coming to you with resolutions. So I hope that hits the overall management approach.
Number 6, the district is interviewing 4 firms, as I said at the beginning. What added value would your firm bring to the district, and describe in detail what you consider the strengths of your firm, your skill sets and experience and perspective, and outline any areas where subcontractors or consultants would likely be needed to fill in any gap areas.
So, yeah, as I said, I do think our experience on past projects really is the strength. And I think, again, that experience is within each of the members of our project team. So we're not just referencing projects that Skanska has performed, we're referencing projects that Jim, C, Jess, and Vinny have performed, and we're bringing that knowledge to the forefront. So I think also we've worked a lot with, design firms, engineer firms, DEP, all these different agencies So we understand the process well enough, or MSBA, to understand that, you know, when we need to pull people in for their expertise. Again, going back to our relevance experience, we can definitely say, okay, we know this is an issue. We may not be able to solve it, but we understand who will. So that is definitely going back to our assembling the right team for your design team, making sure that we have a design team to fill those expertise gaps. And then when you get to the construction manager or GC, understanding how they will fill the other expertise gaps for the physical construction, and then the subcontractors as well when we go through the buyout. So it's really that relevant experience we have in understanding the expertise is needed from some outside sources.
Right.
And then
you're
also,
not-
oh, I'm sorry, Mick. I also like to add, Skanska is also a CM firm. And as Jim mentioned back in the earlier slide, you know, we have in-house resources that we can double check any, you know, if we have, I've been reviewing change orders where I have questions, and I actually went to our estimating and our pre-con team and say, hey, does this look right? What are we looking at this? You know, as Jim mentioned, we have Sandy, we also have our VDC group. So as Skanska, you know, that's what we also bring to the table, is we're also builders.
Yep. Yeah. And
So,
I
I'm sorry,
mean,
didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, no, and I think that's a good point, Sam. I mean, I spent the first half of my career on the CM side and then came over to the OPM side for the last 12 years. So I definitely think that's an advantage that we have over some other firms.
the next question regarding your knowledge of the net zero or the LEED certification for this building. Provide us examples of past experience and high performance green buildings.
Yep. So I think Arlington High School, right out of the gate, they wanted to be net zero. We are into phase 2 of that project, and we are on track for LEED Gold with a possibility for LEED Platinum. And we were able to carry those sustainability goals throughout the project. So that I think that's definitely a success story. Acton Boxborough. They also wanted to go net zero. They're doing geothermal. That's chips. So that's a different method. But yeah, so that one is definitely a success story. There's water recovery. There's you know, PV. That one has just about everything. They actually just had some state reps as well as some industry leaders walk through that project as an example of how it can be a success to walk folks through and really understand that it is achievable.
Getting towards the end. You'll be happy. Number 9, life cycle cost analysis. Provide examples where life cycle cost analysis have provided a benefit to your customers in the past, and elaborate on the importance of the skill set in the MSBA process.
Yep. So all our projects do have to go through a life cycle cost analysis, both through LEED and CHIPS. Elsa definitely is someone that we would loop in on this. She has a very deep knowledge of this. And also MSBA, every year it ramps up more and more that they are looking into this because it's a state investment, and they want to make sure that their investment is a fruitful one, both for the district and for the state tax holders. So yes, we're very, very familiar with that.
And the last on building commissioning, please describe to us the purpose of building commissioning consultants and the advantage to the district that this process provides when executed appropriately.
Yeah. So the new buildings that we have, they're a lot more technical and they're a lot more efficient, but if they are not installed per spec, and if they're not commissioned correctly, they can go in the opposite direction. So the commissioning process is absolutely crucial to a building that is going to be efficient. You're going to have a lot more control over items. basically, be it air handling units, be it other pieces of equipment. But the commissioning process ensures that that everything is basically operating as efficiently as possible. And it's the last check before it's turned over to the district to ensure that process. And we'd also encourage some enhanced commissioning that goes beyond the completion of the project. There's commissioning agents that go out and monitor it for a 3-year period after to ensure that it's maintaining that level of performance as when it was turned over.
We've reached the end of our questions. I'm going to ask I'd like to go through each committee member and see if they have any direct questions. Does anyone just raise your hand if you'd like to focus some questions on this team? Any questions? Roger?
I just had a quick
Roger.
one. Yeah, hi, Roger Challen. I'm actually the school committee. I guess representative or part of this committee. Sorry, I've got 1 or 6 frogs in my throat. Where is Vincent? Oh, I don't know if Vincent, if you mentioned it. I know you've been doing this for a long time and have a lot of experience. How long have you been affiliated with Skanska, if I might ask?
8 years.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? So I guess I'll go ahead.
Mark has
Mark?
his hand raised.
Yep, Mark. You're on mute, Mark.
Oh, I thought you could read my lips. A more general question. I assume you took a tour of the building, looked over the project, looked over the site. In as much as you want, what's your reaction? What do you think? What problems do you think are there, and how much of a reaction did you have with what's there?
So I think one of the challenges that jumped out immediately to me was one road in, one road out. The construction access and the logistics is going to be challenging. I think we can work through it. Second is the building itself. I think we need to know a lot about the materials that are in there as far as abatement and all of that, depending on which direction we go. But for the time period that it was built, it's fairly typical to what we see for that time period. The septic definitely was another thing that jumped out. We just went through this in Acton Boxborough. That process is definitely challenging, and you need to jump on it very early in the process, depending on which direction we're going to go. If we're keeping it, maintaining it, does it apply to new codes? So that was another thing that jumped out. I definitely see some challenges. But I don't think there wasn't anything from that, just the 45-minute walkthrough that I didn't already have the wheels turning of some planning for. So again, the 2 schools on one campus definitely jumped out as to how that would be managed with logistics and drop off, pickup, all those items. So,
Becky?
One quick question. You mentioned a budgeting program with a dashboard. Would the district have access to that information as well?
yes. Yep. Yeah, that like C said, we can hit print on that anytime. And one thing we definitely like to do is on a regular basis, make sure that we're in line with Munis, with the accounting on the district side, and make sure that everything's in line, and do that throughout the process, not a year into the projects. You're making it so that we're in line, so that we know where everything is, and if there's discrepancies, we can understand where those discrepancies happened.
I just have a couple of follow-up questions to ask you. The first being, if you were the chosen firm, would you be available to start negotiations as soon as next week?
Yes. Yep. We would.
Right. And then the second question is, assuming you were chosen, would you be able to aggressively start negotiating a contract?
Yes, yep.
Okay. And as far as your team members, would you be able to get started completely as soon as possible on the project, which is kind of important to us to get started immediately?
Yeah, 100%. I think, you know, we already are looking at, you know, step one is to get the RFS for the architect out the door and get that approved through the district and get that out to the door. So yep, we are ready to hit the ground running.
So no other projects would come into conflict with ours.
Yeah, so during feasibility, yeah, so I think we would, yeah, we would definitely want to get that out the door as soon as possible. So, yep.
And I think the last thing is, do you have any questions of us?
No, I think the RFS and everything had a lot of information, and we have a lot to learn about the site, and a lot to learn about how you operate. But as of right now, no, I think we're pretty clear on next steps.
The superintendent has a question. Greg?
Yeah, so just one quick question around cost estimates and your predictions around, you know, coming in on budget. I think that's really essential. Have most of your projects over the past several years, I think the kind of the economic climate and the trades has been challenging. How have you navigated that in 60 seconds?
In 60 seconds. Well, I don't have a crystal ball. I'll just say that. But all of our projects, yes, ultimately, when we go to construction, are on budget. We've definitely had some challenges. We've had to work through those. Ultimately, what we have had to do on some projects that had budget challenges was pull back scope. Now, that's not just indiscriminately. What we try and do is push that anything that is for the educational plan is untouchable. We look at the projects as a whole. Anything that supports that educational plan is within the project. So we're peeling off other things that either don't support the educational plan, or items outside of that. And we're able to inform that process by, okay, we can't do this now, but if we pull this out, we can add it back in. So, and ultimately us as a firm having all the information that we touched on that one slide for projections and all of that, you know, I do think that's a very valuable tool that we have at our fingertips. I could probably go on for another 20 minutes if you want.
Any other questions? All right, I want to thank you very much, all of you, for presenting, and hopefully we'll be meeting again, but I'm sure Becky will let you know how this pans out at the end of the evening.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Becky, do we have the next one, which is Vertex?
They were in and then they jumped out. So I think they were waiting for Skanska to wrap up before they populated the webinar.
I did send an email to all the firms just asking them to join at their allotted time so that there wouldn't be any, I guess, hearing of the questions in advance.
Mhm.
I'm running down the hall for 30 seconds.
10-4.
Nice job, Denise.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, nice job, Denise. I think I'll do the same thing. I'm going to join Mark.
I'm going to close my blinds in my office because all I see is sun.
Andrew, do you have young children?
I have an almost 2-year-old.
Wow. A good sleeper?
She is, yeah. She sleeps about 7 to 7.
That's good. That's
Well,
nice.
she'll have benefit of this new building.
Hopefully, considering that my parents paid for the other 3 and I never got to use them. I was the last class in every one of the old buildings.
Oh, wow.
Well, it takes a long
Now's
time
your
to.
chance. Now's your chance.
Except
Andy.
for Neary. Neary was exactly the same as when I left it. Yeah.
When did you graduate? Did you graduate from Algonquin or
I went to St. Mark's, but
Yeah.
03.
03? Probably a good time to go to St. Mark's since the building project at the high school was.
There was a lot going on in Algonquin at the
Yeah.
It does seem like we have the team from Vertex ready to go.
All right, I'll bring them all over.
Perfect timing, Roger.
If I'm nothing, it's that I'm timely.
Spot
I
on.
said that right.
Oh. Are we waiting for anybody else? Yeah,
I think everybody should be over by now.
They're on their way.
We've got one more.
good. Good afternoon. I'm Denise Eddy. I'm the vice chair of the subcommittee of the Neary Building Committee. And we welcome you. And we were challenged by 9 different companies vying for this position to work with us. And this committee spent the weekend reading all of the materials that you assembled. And on Monday, we voted and brought 4 companies forward, you being one of them, to interview today. The interview schedule has no bearing on any likes or dislikes by the committee. We did them at random. We had them mixed up, and then I think Becky pulled them out of a hat or whatever, so that there was no, preferential treatment to anybody. That being said, we have 10 minutes that we are allowing you to present your project, and then we have questions. Becky has shared those questions with you because some of them are kind of complex, and I think it's only fair that you be able to see them before you answer them. So I'm not sure who's going to speak on your behalf, but we're ready.
And John, I sent those questions to you.
Okay. Just now?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So if you want to start the presentation first.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't see those right now, but I'll go back. It's fine. Can you just check, Andrew, is Steve Devine in the waiting room?
I do not see him.
Okay. Okay.
John, are
well,
you going to present? Do you need to maybe make you
yeah,
co-host?
if I could share screen, Andrew, that would be great. All set. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. We are really excited to be here today to talk about our firm and your project. Just very quickly, we'll talk about our experience, our management approach, how we get you from this feasibility process to a preferred option, how we're going to keep you on budget during construction, and then obviously for the Q&A. We've got the timer running, and we'll kind of go from there. Again, my name is John Lemieux. I would be your project director. I've been with Vertex for 23 years. It was my 23rd anniversary last week. Civil engineer by training in school, and I've been doing OPM work really for the last 15 or 16 years. Steve?
Steve Theron, Senior Project Manager. My responsibilities would include running project meetings and coordination of all designer and contractor issues as the owner's project manager. As some of you may know, I'm a former 20-year resident of Southborough. Both my boys attended all these schools, and I was also chair of the school building committee, during which time we conducted and implemented the Woodward School project and the Trottier Additions project. Very familiar with Southborough and certainly with the Southborough schools. Anissa? Volume.
I'm on mute. Hi, my name is Anissa Ellis, and I'm a project manager with Vertex, and I'll be assisting Steve with coordinating the designer and contractors as the owner's project manager. I'll keep detailed meeting notes and make sure all team members know their responsibilities and ensure the project stays on track. I'll also help oversee the project website and make sure it's up to date so that It keeps all the public informed of the progress. Next, I believe is Chin.
Chin,
Yes,
please.
Chin Lin, and I'm a registered architect. And excuse me, before joining Vertex 4 years ago, I practiced in the architecture and doing designing and building public schools, mostly MSBA projects. So I'm very familiar with the process both on the architect side and as well as the OPM side, and that I'm familiar with programming. Even if I have to, I can assist on writing the air plan. For this project, I'll be helping on the enrollment decision process.
Thank you, Mary.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Cuppins. I'm the Director of OPM Project Accounting, and I've been with our OPM group for 14 years. Steve is next.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, and thank you all for the opportunity to interview for the new Mary Elementary School project. My name is Steve Devine. I'll be the construction site manager. I'm looking forward to bringing excitement and team leadership to your project. As you can see by our resume, I have over 30 years experience as both project architect, general contractor, as well as the owner's project manager. I've completed 27 school building projects to date. I was the on-site resident architect for the state's first public CMR project, 6-phase renovation of the occupied Salem High School, completed under budget and ahead of schedule. I'm experienced in both Chapter 149, the design bid build, and 149A, construction manager at risk delivery methods, with extensive skill in managing multi-phase projects in occupied buildings and tight sites. I was the past construction site manager at Norwood's High School project, Stoughton High School, Medway Middle School renovation, in addition to repurposing an office building in Billerica into a new Valley Collaborative School special needs collaborative. I'm currently on site completing the new Town of Wellesley Hardy Elementary School project. I'm excited to be a part of the team that brings your new project to fruition. Thank you for the time.
Thanks, Steve. So just briefly about the company, we were founded in '95. We grew our roots in construction surety projects that went south. We started doing OPM work about 16 years ago or so. We acquired Compass Project Management in 2018 to enhance our OPM services. So, to Steve's resume, if you look at our combined companies, we've got over 80 projects ranging from 2 to 300 million, either design, bid, build, or CM at risk. We've got 44 people at the firm. All we do on a daily basis is OPM work. We like to think that we have great customer service. And as you can see from the list of projects below, we love repeat clients, and we would really love to add Southborough to the list of a second major project. But what's the big issue here? It's getting you to yes, right? This is a long process. This is the start of a relationship that could be 5-6 years, from start to finish, with votes and construction and all. What happens? How do we get there? We got to complete the team. We've got to get you a designer who's done this before, a designer who's got experience with multiple enrollment scenarios. We talk about the options analysis, and Steve will talk briefly about that in a minute. At the end of the day, the MSBA is looking for Southborough to pick the most fiscally responsible and educationally applicable solution for you, right? This is about you. This is about your town. It's about your project, and we want to help get it there. Community engagement is key in a project like this. Taking people along for the ride, helping them feel like they're informed. We have multiple ways of being able to do that. We'll talk more about that later. And communication is really important. And, from everything from the, daily, from Steve's point of view in the field, to weekly, to monthly building committee meetings and community meetings, bigger from there. Steve Theron, if you talk briefly about the, kind of the path and how we get over the next 2 years to getting to a town vote.
Sure, thank you, John. So the first major task is to do what is called with the MSBA, the preliminary design plan. And this consists of creating the educational plan, as Chin referred to, for the project, as well as the related space summary, which is the summary of each space and how much room and how many of this kind of space and how many of that kind of spaces you want. And also the many design options of the project. The options will include a base repair project, an addition renovation option, and new build options for each of the enrollment scenarios, the 235, the 450, and the 610. The schedule of the submission of the first report would be the end of March 2024. Following that report would be the preferred schematic report, and that preferred schematic report will document further each of these options and ultimately provide the selected option. So it goes from the many, and then you winnow that down to the few, and then ultimately come up with the one. And that one would be submitted to the MSBA in that second report in August 2024. What August 2024 does is allows you to get on track for MSBA to fully approve the project, provide you the letter that authorizes the funding agreement, and allows you to bring that to town meeting in the spring. So that's how all of this lines up to spring town meeting 2025.
Thank you, Steve. Chin, briefly, if you could explain a little bit of our consolidation experience and how it compares to the NERI project.
So we have done this in for many towns, including Westwood, Stoughton, and Dedham, and Norwood as well. And the process is really that we will work out with you a plan that make it so that we can address all the issues that the community might have ahead of time, so that when we go out there and start talking to the community, that we can address the issues. And then we will be working closely with the superintendent to plan out what the future of education depends on what of the different scenarios, what that might look like, so we can address them. And in some way that this project is a little bit easier than the other projects, because you have all of your schools are townwide. There's no district line within the town, so that makes it makes it easier. So without the district line, but we've done that very successfully for many of the towns. In fact, the last two projects, that when the time comes to for the vote, for the funding vote, that there was not a single question raised about the reconfiguration or the enrollment issue. The only issue is about the budget. And so we would like to do that for you, for your project.
Thanks, Chin. Steve?
So this next slide shows the process that I referred to earlier. Basically, it has and shows the process of evaluation of the many options, the criteria that gets applied to that, and Nissa will speak in detail to that in a moment, as a town created criteria to evaluate which project and of the options works best for Southborough. So with that criteria being applied and further research done, as the list gets winnowed down, as I said a moment ago, then you ultimately arrive at that one project solution that further work is done on, and that's what arrives at town meeting.
Vanessa?
Yep. So what we use as one of those tools is the evaluation matrix. And as you can see from this example, we list all the different potential sites and enrollment options. And then on the left side are all the criteria. And some of the different criteria we use include obviously cost, educational impacts, and we kind of try to streamline those to what's important to Southborough. And then as a team, we'll go through and we'll fill it out. And the ones that are in red are labeled as less advantageous, and the ones in green are more advantageous. And as you can see, it makes it very clear to kind of see which options are the front runner. And so we spend a lot of time, and we work with you guys as a team to make sure that we're evaluating things the way that you want. Another thing to note too is cost isn't always, the front runner. It doesn't always mean the lowest cost is the best solution for the town. So this is a very useful tool. I know we just did it in Dedham, and we spent a lot of time in Dedham kind of going through it and reevaluating it and talking through all the different criteria to make sure that we did, do it the best way possible. So.
Just on cost, and I'm sure you're going to have some questions about that. I mean, we have just come through one of the highest periods of construction inflation that the market has seen in decades. So at the end of the day, we understand that, a year from now, we would end up coming up with or a little more than a year from now, you end up coming up with a number. Then that number gets voted. Then there's another year of design that takes place, and then we go to bid. So you can't go back to the well. We have to come up with a budget that everyone can believe in and stick to it, and then have to go with it from there. And Mary, if you could just tell us a little bit about the accounting process, and we'll wrap up.
Sure. OPM project accounting is a set of our best practices that we implement on all of our projects to keep the project team focused at all times on the financial health of your project. We prepare a monthly vendor invoice package, including all of the month's invoices, which your PM will have reviewed and recommended for payment, as well as a detailed set of budget reports up to date. We submit your project's MSBA budgets into the MSBA ProPay system on your behalf and handle all of your monthly requests for reimbursement. We are one of the few OPM firms who will take care of that for you. In terms of our experience with this, we've entered more than $1 billion in costs to the MSBA ProPay system for 61 different projects, resulting in more than $429 million in reimbursement to our clients. Simply put, we watch the money, report transparently, and help maximize your reimbursement.
Thanks, Mary. In closing, why choose us? We love doing this work, and we love working for you when we did your public safety project, right in the shadow of one of the schools we're talking about here. We have a lot of project experience, identical and recent to what we're talking about here. Multiple options from the MSBA. That is a trend now where there are, we're seeing more and more multiple enrollment scenarios being put out there, because frankly, the MSBA, they would love to see you do a bigger project than 2 smaller projects later, especially in the market with escalation such that it is. Pay a little bit more now and not have to come knocking later. Again, we've got experience right now with this current difficult market, and believe that we can help deliver, a good, fiscally responsible, educationally appropriate project for the town. We have a great track record of projects being finished on time and on budget, and also with those projects, working with our teams, getting those projects to successful votes. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to work for 1.5 years to get to a point where a project fails at town meeting. Sometimes, you can say, well, it was just too expensive. At the end of the day, if you can talk about that, and then the idea is to talk about it, set it up, up front, and deal with it. We've worked in towns right around you in Westboro. We finished the Fales Elementary School, working on the Mendez School in Ashland, and we'd be really excited to work with you again. So with that, I will shut this off.
So I guess we're into the question phase. John, were you able to pull up those questions?
Yeah, I just got them. Thank you.
Cool. So the first question, I just thought it would be easier if you could visualize them. But the first question is to provide examples of projects your firm has managed that are similar in scope to the NERI project, including the same building size, adherence to budget, schedule, and number of accidents and safety violations, and an outcome of any legal action. Please also share examples of a project that went exceptionally well and projects that had challenges, and how you navigated and adhered to the budget and schedule within both situations.
Sure. No, it's a great question. I have them up here. Give me 1 second. I'm pulling up a piece from our response. As far as past projects, size wise, obviously you've got a number of different enrollment sizes there. We have done projects, I would say, in all of those ranges. As you can see, we have the Fales Elementary School, which was a 400 student project, down the road in Westboro. Again, projects these days have to stay on time and on budget, because if they don't stay on time, they're by default, they're going to end up off budget, right? Because if it goes longer, you're going to have additional costs that come to the project, either in the form of delay claims from the contractor, extended general conditions, all of those type of issues. I think the schedule challenges do come up. In fact, on the Westboro project, we had some schedule issues with the driller, with the geothermal project, And at the end of the day, it was really solved by having a great relationship with the town administration, specifically the school administration, and the folks that actually work in the building on a daily basis. That communication that Steve Devine talked about, just about, having to always be on top of the builder, always being able to talk about what's coming next. This school was built slightly uphill from the existing Fales Elementary School. Similar situation with Neary, right? There is a green patch of land out back, which seems like it would be a great spot to build the new project, but it is going to be right next to an existing school on a road that also has your middle school. So it's the way things are built these days. You rarely have a piece of land, this big open piece of land in a town where you can say, oh, let's just go put it over here and we'll move in when it's ready. No, it's usually right next door. It's behind. Sometimes it's as close to, a job we did at Pentucket Middle High School. We had work within, I would say 0 feet. We actually had to demolish a piece of the old building in the boiler room to start the framing for a wing of the building. And, we had blasting going on outside of an existing school. All of these things can be done with proper and efficient timing and communication. There's no problem. There's no challenge we can't get through if we talk about it and vet it out along the way. I would tell you that from our biggest safety related issues on any projects were COVID over the last few years. We've been very lucky to work with very good contractors where, as an example, the Fales project, I don't believe we had any injuries on that project. We didn't have any lawsuits on that project. So, at the end of the day, could somebody always file a suit for non-payment or something along those lines? Yes, but I would tell you far and away, our projects are free of those issues because part of our management approach is to knock down an issue when it comes up. Don't just put it aside and hold it for later, because doing that just upsets people. If a claim comes in, we deal with it. We deal with it up front. And if people don't like the answer, that's fine. We can put it aside then, but we're not going to hide from it and wait because that does not do Southborough any good at the end of the day. And I think if you were to talk to the folks that were involved in the public safety building, we had a very short list of items at the end of the project that we needed to deal with. And it made for a very quick and easy kind of settle out what's left, with the town.
Just to add on to that, John, is what we try to do is we try to form a collaboration with the general contractor and the architect, as well as you as the owner, because that's who we're representing. If we all work and pull together, we have a successful project. If there's an issue, we all put our heads together and try to work through it together. We don't point fingers. We don't look to assign any blame. We look to figure it out and get through it, like John said. If there's a money issue, we'll discuss that. If contract construction needs to continue in a timely manner, we still have a method to get that work complete so we don't hurt the schedule. We're always trying to look ahead, anticipate where these roadblocks are going to be and head them off before they get there.
Thank you, Steve.
Next part of that question is a working relationship. So could you provide us an overview of your communication strategy in all phases of this project with everybody, with all our stakeholders?
Sure, that's a very loaded short question because communication on these projects is what gets them passed. Okay, at the end of the day, everybody from the stakeholders in the building, from the stakeholders who send their children to the building, everybody wants to feel like they've been heard, and it's a process, right? And I think if I can call up let me call up the timeline we showed you. I think it's important to illustrate that we talk about public comment along the way, and that communication happens in numerous ways, right? First of all, every meeting is a public meeting, right? But people don't like taking time and going to those meetings a lot, right? I was on the building committee in my town. We built at the time, $110 million middle high school. If we got 12 people at a public forum, that was a big thing. but at least you held the forum, right? And we would continue to do those for you. And that's what you can see along this process, just over from now to town meeting. You can see all of those yellow stars. Those are there to basically say, look, we're going to communicate with the community at in-person meetings throughout this process. But that's just one facet, right? We would suggest a couple of different things. One, a project-specific website that is tied to the district's webpage, so that at any time we can go ahead, put up meeting minutes, we can put up, hey, what's happening, news that's coming later. It gives the town and folks whose kids attend the schools the opportunity to, hey, what's the latest with the project? We provide all the content. You connect us with who your web person is. We can put that together. That's communication, kind of for the public. Within the committee, we have project-specific websites where this group, the larger building committee, the design team, we can host internally all the work product and everything that we do. The things that, as things get developed, as they get baked per se, so that they don't go out on the town website until they're fully done and complete. This is a collaborative process, right? We have working group meetings, and then we have building committee meetings. The smaller working group one week could be English teachers, the next week could be science teachers, next week PE teachers, and all of those things are informing a larger decision that then the building committee will then weigh in on. That's another set of communication. We also have to keep the school committee involved and understanding, because the school committee ultimately is the group that will make this enrollment decision. Technical and construction decisions, the way the MSBA has this set up, default to the building committee. The building committee informs the school committee, but the school committee makes enrollment decisions. They will decide on whether it's the 305 or the 610 or the enrollment in the middle. And we need to keep them involved, and kind of, as you can see through this timeline here, it's a parallel path, right? The designer's going to start doing existing condition surveys and all of that. We have to start having the discussions with the school committee early. I think ultimately, once you get into construction, communication, there's many different levels. There's, what's happening on a weekly or monthly basis. We can do that with local cable television. On a weekly basis, Steve Devine would be informing and working with the principal almost on a daily basis. Hey, here's what's going to happen the next 3, 5, 7 days. Here's when we're going to do paving. Here's when we're going to have to close off this driveway. So there's just various layers of communication. And Steve Theron, any thoughts on that?
Well, you set me up well, because you know that this is my favorite slide on the project for the first year. Because what we do with this slide, in every single meeting we have, a community meeting, a school committee meeting, or a building committee meeting, is we show this slide as updated. So everybody, whether it's their first meeting or they haven't missed a meeting, sees this to continue to learn what this process is. And so everybody knows when you're in the last meetings, when somebody says, you guys didn't even really look at this stuff and you rushed all this through, everybody that sees this same slide every single meeting knows that that's not the case, that it's a clear explanation of our schedule that gets us from the designer being hired right to town meeting vote. And we speak to it every single meeting for a consistent message. And then we see if there are questions, because we know new folks show up every meeting. We hope anyway, every single meeting. So the school committee, and John touched on that, that's the very important part, is to make sure the school committee will first, is in on the communication on the challenges of figuring out what how that decision is going to be made, and figuring out what is important to them and what questions they may have that we as a team with a designer can run down and bring back to them. So there's good back and forth there, so that the school committee has good information and they feel like they've been well supported to make that decision, and make it as soon as it can be made. Not to rush it, but make it as soon as it can be made, so the project can continue with the benefit of that decision made. So the better the communication is, and the consistent communication, the better all this works.
Moving to the next question, which was building code knowledge. Could you highlight the pertinent sections of the Mass Building Code that relate to a new school project, and describe the process you would take to address any uncertainties to the interpretation of that code? How have you worked with state agencies as well as town boards and communities and committees to follow town and state code bylaws.
John, do you want me to take that? Yeah, being an architect, that building code is something that I know quite well, and then I know, and having been on the designer side, I also know what are the pitfalls, and some of the obvious ones are the in terms of the codes are the wetland or the conservation commission, whether it's a drainage issue or a wetland issue. So that we want to address that early, and so we know what is what do we have. And then in terms of building code, one of the biggest issue that we need to pay attention to is that what is the project schedule overlapping with the code updates, because each code update would bring new issue, would make each change of the building code would require the architect to make sure that it gets designed to the proper addition of the building code and energy code. For instance, we recently just had the energy code update, and then so that now buildings has to be designed to that code. So understanding when that change will take place in relationship to the project would make the project go much smoother in the process and reduce any sort of uncertainty. And then having a close conversation and then review the project with the authority with jurisdiction. This would be building department, planning department, and the fire department, all of them, that early and to establish that what are the issues that potentially that they will be looking for the project to address, and then address them early on, so there's no surprises. And depending on the project, that we may or may not have additional state level permitting that we need to go through.
If I could emphasize a couple of Chin's good points. First, on this group, we're either professional engineers, licensed architects, or licensed builders. So we're all licensed with the Mass State Building Code as a requirement and a key to those licenses. So my first reaction to this was the energy code, as Chin mentioned and touched on, is that changes, and it changes on a timing and is related to so many other parts of codes that may not change. That's a key item to stay on top of. Also, what Chin said was the police and fire, especially fire, because regardless of the timing of code changes, if they know something's coming, they still will want it. So you want to have good communication with especially the fire department well in advance to find out any other items. Of course, we know the fire department, any other items that they know are coming and have concerns about, even if they're not in place yet, because we know what happens, that those things will be implemented. And so the earlier you know about them, and if you incorporate them in the documents, it just costs less to implement them. So that, just to add on to Chin's good comments there.
And a piece, I guess it's a good time to talk about this a little bit. One of the other parts, I think one of the things that we, take is really important in our role is the constructability review, process, right? And at the end of the day, as Steve's point, where we do have, and you saw that first slide, you had our picture, our lovely pictures, but below that you had a list of other folks. We have resources in-house that are structural, that are architectural, that are mechanical, that are fire protection. All of those folks aren't there to second guess a design that's done by somebody, but they are there as a gut check. So, at schematic design, there's not a ton of detail, right? There's the basics understanding of what your project is and where it's going. But once we get into design development, really start getting into the details, our team will take those drawing sets. Our team will take the construction documents, the early set of those, and run through them and basically look at it and try to address it from a constructability standpoint, meaning does slot A fit into tab B? Is there an appropriate handoff between trades? The biggest issues we find with designer drawings is really coordination between subconsultants. At the end of the day, the plumber carries the pipe 10 feet outside the building. The civil guy carries it to 20 feet within the building. Well, there's a 10-foot gap there. Who owns that 10-foot piece of pipe? That could stop the project, or at least hold something up for a while. Those are the kind of things we're trying to get through. To the higher end, if we see something about accessibility or we see something about other code related items, one of your options is going to have to be in the early phases, a renovation of the NERI building. Well, what does that mean? And what to Chin's point, what codes may be tripping, maybe not now, but later, depending on the timing of the project. So we agree on a schedule, and then we can kind of say, okay, we know which codes we have, and then always, monitoring later if by some chance we need to take a longer time, hey, what could that mean to code? And, because code can change design, design can change cost.
Management approach. Could you elaborate on your management style on your firm, on the project of a scale of 90,000 square feet in a public school construction, whether it's renovation or new construction? Describe the timeline where your firm would use a structured approach to solve a problem or resolve conflict in a timely manner.
Okay, so from a management approach, I'll let Steve talk about the first part, and how we, kind of structure it. And Steve Devine, if you have any thoughts about how we collaborate, kind of from the beginning, and then I'll take the second part for the conflicts.
So the first, usually people think about the construction part of the project, but there's a whole part that's before that takes place, which is just as important to set the project up for success. So the management of that side of it is what we do, and this team has all worked together on several projects. So what we do, John, in his leadership role, he keeps an eye on basically Anissa and my efforts, and the two of us are involved in every action that takes place. Chin has his areas of specialty he brings in, and certainly Steve with his work on the site, and Mary on the accounting side. And the two of us basically run and operate every single meeting that takes place, whether it's with the designer, to hire the designer, to bring them on and run that through. So we set the agendas for meetings, we run those meetings. That's how that works for us. When we get into construction, it's the same thing. We have weekly project meetings. We run those meetings. Steve, of course, with it in construction, Steve is on board and a big part of bringing items to that meeting that are items of concern on the job that week, et cetera. It's not just a weekly flyby. That's just a time where we meet and we run through. Sometimes it's not pretty, but we run through all the items and issues on the project. And an expression I use a lot is, we're not here to not talk about items. We're here to talk about items. So even if it's not pretty, that's why we're here. So that's generally how we run the early part, and then through to the construction side.
And I think it goes to, finding the, right team from the start, right? The big mantra in our group is team, plan, execute. Get the right team on board that everyone's comfortable with. Because let's face it, you sitting in your seats right now have to leave here today with this brief, back and forth. Are these a group of people that I can see us working with for the next 5 or 6 years? Because that's what it is. And if you're not comfortable with it, you have to start off right. You have to start off right. Same thing with grabbing the designer. When we move to the designer phase, well, then the designer selection panel gets involved. Southborough gets 3 votes out of 13. But we really try to hope and push the folks that you meet in the interviews,
John,
to getting there.
May I step in for a second on this designer selection part? That with the MSBA recent change that you are potentially, it used to be that you can only get 2% additional credit for the additional points for reimbursement for energy efficient. Now the MSBA made it potentially up to 4 percentage points. And however, these are new requirements, and that are, some of them could be very stringent that the architectural community may not be very familiar with. If the town wants to go after that, then what we will want to do is to write that in early on in the RFS for the designer, so that we tell the designer what we want at the end of the day, and then so that you can pick the right team and assemble the right team.
No, it's a great point. I think the other thing we talk about is also project ego as opposed to personal ego, right? At the end of the day, we care about the project. We may disagree with something, and our job is to tell you our opinion, but at the end of the day, it's your job. it's your project, it's your building for the next 50, 60, 70, 80 years. So at the end of the day, we're here to help you make, make informed decisions. I think that, we've talked about the collaborative approach. We've talked about, having processes in place, whether it's our change order process, whether it's, for change order review, whether it's, larger disputes and claims, having a process set up that if we can't come to an agreement on something, having already talked with someone at the town to have, town council available for, interpretations. We want to have plans in place and contingencies in place for any of the things that happen. Ultimately, we are about, inviting the other members of the team, the designer, and then the contractor to the table. It's a little bit different if we do see them at risk because they come to the table a lot sooner than design, bid, build, where you tear open the envelope and find out on bid day who we're going to be working with. But we can have discussions with you about that later. But in either event, like Steve said, we don't get anywhere with an us versus them approach. It really is collaborative because at the end of the day, we want Southborough happy. We don't get scored on a DCAM report card. All we get is the phone call to one of you that says, how did Vertex do? So it really matters to us that you are happy, with the process.
Again, one other thing too, John, is that, we're all about the process. We can't just decide we're going to build CM at risk, or we're going to build 149, or we're going to build next door to this building or that building. We have to do the process. So we have to look at all of those options before we can decide which way we're going. Part of that's coming up with the ed plan. Again, listening to the town and what you all want, not what we want to give you. We're going to give you what you want. But again, it's like we're making a team with everybody from the beginning all the way through. And if it's a 6 or 8 year process, you guys won't see me for a while, but I'm there and I'm watching what's going on. Always looking at the design, the constructability. I'm an architect as well as Chin. And I've been more in the construction phase. And again, I was a general contractor. So when we get into construction, again, I go to all those GC meetings. So I hear the pulse, what's going on, and I can, anticipate where the roadblocks may be, try to head them off before they come an issue. So that by the time we get down to the owner meeting, we've already got the answer. And where I've been in this game for so long is like half of these designers, they all used to work for me when I was the architect. So I have no problem picking up the phone and, talking to the top dog. A lot of these guys now, it's the sons are taking over their dad's company that, I worked with it when I was their age. So, yeah, we're all about.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we need to move on to the next question because we have people waiting and
Sure.
we're still not finished. I apologize.
No problem. Thank you.
Number 6, the capacity and skills. The district is interviewing 4 firms today for this project. What value added would you bring to this district? Describe in detail what you consider your strengths from your firm, from a skill set perspective, an experience perspective, and outline any areas where subcontractors or consultants would likely be needed to fill any gaps.
So we'll start with the last piece briefly. Our entire workload would be handled in-house with the exception of third-party cost estimator, PM&C. Everything else is done in-house so that we do not have any other sub-consultants. That doesn't mean as we get into the project, if you would like us to handle procurement of the third-party testing company or the, if we're going to bid the project electronically, we can of course do those as, additional sub-consultants to ourselves. But for the pure scope of work that's in the RFS, it's all us. We do it all in-house. I think at the end of the day, you've got people here in front of you that many have over 30 years experience each working in construction. This team has worked together. Steve worked and Mary worked together on the first Compass project management project. So Steve worked for Compass, left Compass, came and worked for Vertex. We acquired Compass. Steve end up back together on a project. So we all have a good history of working together with each other. We're working together on projects right now. When Chin was with the architect, HMFH in Westboro, he was on the other side of the table, and now he's across the hall. we're really comfortable as a team working together and collaborating. I think, we also worked for the town before, obviously in the public safety building. I've done some work with Keith, some smaller things, kind of in a lead up, that ultimately, got you, into the program, which is great. And I think if you were to call, ultimately any of our references, they would tell you that, we do what we say we're going to do. And we're not gone when we hand you the keys. We still have clients that we talk to years and years later for questions, for, hey, what would you do about this? That's what we like. We like that relationship. You bump into someone at the airport, and can have a conversation about, some random thing on the building. Hey, what should we do about this? Give me a call next week. We'll help figure it out. That's long after the contract's over, and we've moved on to the next project.
Our eighth question. Oh,
We're just going to add that we don't have any ramp up time needed. We know the town well. We know the schools well. And so we're ready to go.
Describe the advantages and the disadvantages of the district in pursuing LEED certification on net zero school building, providing examples of your past performance in green buildings. Sure.
I mean, right now we have multiple projects that are pursuing LEED, because prior to the new MSBA, the new MSBA project advisory that just came out a few months ago, Chin alluded to it, it was 2%, now it's 4%. There are some things in there that change, LEED certified to LEED silver. Most of our projects approach, a LEED silver baseline. The question for Southborough becomes, everybody will go for those 2 points. Okay, the question will become now, do you want to spend the money to go for the 4 points? Again, this is new territory. It was really just issued a couple of weeks ago. So it'll be interesting collaborating with the designers with that. But the whole net zero thing, at the Fales School, Steve Theron and I worked on that. That project is completely net zero. Between the PV on the roof and the geothermal in the ground, that school has provides a surplus of electricity to the grid, half of the time. Other time it's in deficit, but over the span of the year, they are net, essentially a little net positive, pushing electricity to the grid. In the end, that becomes a question of what does Southborough want, right? You can achieve, some towns want to, I want that LEED platinum certification on the door. Okay, but is it worth it? And part of our job with you is to, with the designer, is to walk through it and say, okay, as we're starting to talk about cost, is your site set up in such a way that to achieve a higher level of LEED? There's, again, the MSBA is going to require you to have a base level, and whether we follow LEED or CHIPS, which is the more of the in-state program, there's a level they want you to get past, and getting past that level gets you 2 points. Will we want to do the next 2 points? We'll see. But it's a collaborative effort with you as the town. Westboro as a perfect example. All along it was 46 million. The project has to be 46 million. It can't be over 46 million. As we got near the end, folks said, well, what about net zero? Well, it's going to add $5 million to the project. Okay. Like, whoa, if I had told you anything else was going to add 5 million to the project, you would have said no way. But it became something that the town wanted and said, listen, we had already done it at the Hastings School, had a good history of it, really appreciate the benefits, and said, okay, let's go ahead and put it in. So we would build that into the process with you and say, once you decide, kind of on a site and an enrollment, as we start talking about HVAC, you start having those discussions about, is it worth it? Do you want to have it in there or not? How good is the land around you? Is the site a good site for wells? Do the wells have to be 500 feet or 800 feet? How many of them do we need? We can start to have that discussion. But I would tell you that, we've got probably 5 or 6 schools, 5 or 6 buildings that are net zero at this point. We've got multiple other buildings that have done geothermal. The Ashland police station, police and fire, public safety that just opened has geothermal for part of the building as well. So there are all sorts of combinations, but at the end of the day, it's a collaboration with you, with your facilities department. These buildings are getting very sophisticated, and you're the one that's left with it at the end. So there has to be some good back and forth and balance between, hey, this is what we want to do because we think it's the right thing to do versus it's just too much money. You know, we can't spend money for a plaque.
And also, we're also very we're also very closely involved with the utility company. In fact, that I participated in the last round of the incentive program establishment and helped them establish the current sets of the incentive program for National Grid and Eversource. And this is the kind of things that we can bring to the table and then explain to you, okay, you can, if we were to participate with the most aggressive incentive program, this is what the utility company will provide you as an incentive, and this is what the investment will be, and then you can do the analysis and then see how that works in terms of financially, and then as well as the it is not just the financial, but also the carbon, what's your carbon footprint in the long term. And then so those are decision making. We bring the information to you, and we try to put our personal ego aside, and then just simply have a honest conversation about what will be the best thing in the long term, and work with you on that.
Thank you. Our next question is, could you provide examples where life cycle cost analysis have provided a benefit to your customers in the past, and elaborate on the importance of that skill set in the MSBA process?
So just a quick slide, if you can see it. This is an excerpt from a life cycle cost analysis. You know, at the end of the day, as we start moving towards, you know, net zero buildings, everything being electric, you know, obviously, you know, if in years past, people would say, what do you mean all electric? And now from a fossil fuel standpoint, it is a upfront conversation everywhere we go. That discussion about the life cycle cost is huge, because it's not just the cost, the initial cost of the system, right? If you look at the circle, right, it's the annual maintenance cost for whatever technology you're putting in. It's the energy cost. You know, what were you spending? The last thing we want is for you to decide you're going to go all net zero, and your $30,000 electric bill, the first one comes in and it's 80. Oh my God, somebody, you know, if we told you it was going to be 80, you need to know at the beginning. You need to know at the beginning of the process so that you can help budget it, because the decision you make, you know, on a construction project is going to impact long-term operating budgets forever. Okay. Periodic repair costs, replacement cost of the system, and how long, you know, it's not just the initial cost. And what you can see here in the graphic on the right is, are those options carried out? And what will happen is the design team will have an MEP consultant that will look hard and long at this, so that when we present to you different HVAC options as an example for the building, you can understand what that means for the long-term budget and short-term budget. You know, this is going to be the impact of the construction cost, but here's what it's going to mean to you at the current rates for the next few years. And, you know, relying on them for some energy modeling, for some financial modeling as well. You know, look what happened to our electric bills in the last year. They doubled in some reason, you know, and, you know, we will want to work hard with you on that, so that you don't make a decision that is penny wise for the construction project, but pound foolish, you know, for years in the future for a utility cost.
In the case of,
sorry, in our last, we have to move on. In our last question relates to building commissioner. Could you describe to the subcommittee the purpose of building commissioning consultants and the advantage to the district that this process provides when executed appropriately?
So the great news about the building commissioning process is the MSBA pays for it. They have a very robust commissioning program, and they basically give you all of the commissioning that you need on the building to get you within the maximum points that LEED looks for. There's one additional LEED point that if you want to hire the commissioning consultant for longer term monitoring, you can go ahead and do that. They are basically a belt and suspenders brought on by the MSBA, fully paid for by the MSBA, which is wonderful, because on all of our other building projects, municipal building projects that aren't schools with MSBA participation, town has to pay for it themselves. It's really an extra set of eyes and ears for the actual operation and shakeout of a system. As an example, somebody buys, you buy air conditioning, okay? The contractor puts it in, plugs it in and says, it works. There's a whole other process that goes on after that, where we're talking about, Steve, I'll let you talk about it. You're in it more on a daily basis.
Let me jump in, and then Steve, if you have further up. I think this is bringing the commissioning agents on, not just the mechanical, but also the envelope is one of the best things the MSBA has done in years. Keith, if you remember, the first thing we did with the Trotter Additions project was fix the mechanical system of the brand new Trotter building because it never worked right.
That's
And
correct.
this is why the commissioning agents were brought on, so that folks operating a brand new building, all super sophisticated compared to what they're used to, didn't know how to operate the building, and it never worked right anyways. So that's what the mechanical system commissioning agents are for, and that's a perfect example. Town meeting approved money to go fix the Trotter building, and it had only been open 2 years, something like that. Yeah, 2 years, and it never worked right. And of course, the salt in it all of it was the contractor who was paid to come back and fix it was the contractor who did the initial installation.
So the good part about the commissioning agents too, they're brought on as soon as you vote yes on the project. So they're brought in, they participate as another set of, basically technical reviewer for the MEP, for everything MEP, and especially also the envelope, as Steve mentioned, where these buildings become so much more energy efficient. Windows are thicker, roof insulation is thicker, buildings are tighter. These folks come in and actually do the testing to make sure that, that the air doesn't get through, that the water doesn't get through, so that, again, an extra belt and suspenders, and they have to sign off on the project as part of the closeout. So if they're not happy, contractor's not happy, in the end, everyone needs to sign off and say, okay, we did it.
And again, it's getting them involved early. We bring them on in the submittal process. So as the architect and the engineers are reviewing submittals, the commission agents also reviewing the commissions at the same time. So they provide their comments to the architect. So we have everyone's looked at this. They provided all the comments. They're on board early. We start commissioning meetings before we even get steel on the project. And we're having those meetings, and we're doing more than just checking boxes for MSBA. We're making sure that the contractor has all his mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, his systems people, everybody involved at the beginning. So we all know where we're headed, how we're getting there, where we're going. And again, part of the process.
I want to just add one thing real quick. They even start before that, like through design development. They're reviewing everything at the same time as well. So even before submittals. So
Correct.
So we have a couple of questions at the end, and these are rather just housekeeping. Are you available to start negotiations if you are chosen tonight? Are you available to start negotiations next week?
I'd start tomorrow.
He'll stay on the call if he needs to.
We listen, you have stuck to your schedule in the RFS so far, and it said negotiate Friday. I said, okay, that means they're going to want a proposal Thursday. Okay, great. So yes, whatever you need.
To your point, this committee spent the weekend reading all of those proposals.
It was a quick turnaround.
You know what John's doing tonight? He's working on that proposal.
Hoping anyway, right?
And secondly, would you be available to begin working immediately if you awarded the contract?
Of course. We don't go after projects to not perform, right? At the end of the day, there are projects you identify, there's towns you have relationship with, we want this project, I'm going to be really upset if if we're not successful. But at the end of the day, obviously you make the decision you need to make, but we would love to work with Southborough again.
And you would have the team members available below you to execute this on a timely manner for us with no conflicts of other projects?
No issue at all.
Anything you want to ask us now that we've asked all the questions?
No, I think you answered it. So it sounds like you're going to are you actually looking at informing this evening?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, fabulous.
Possibly, yep, that's our plan. We want to get moving. So I thank you very much and appreciate all your effort and, getting to us to this point.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much. Have a great afternoon. I appreciate the time. Take care.
Thank
you.
And I,
Thank
Becky, I will
you.
send you the
Thank
presentation.
you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks very much.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
You guys want 5 minutes? It's up to you guys.
And I'll email Hill and let them know we're ready for them, so.
Okay.
Should I also email Colliers and let them know we're running about 20 minutes behind?
Yeah,
25
that would be good. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be really.
I think that would be fair to them, Beck, yeah.
So it does look like they are in the audience now, Denise.
Cool. But we're still waiting for our committee to get back. We got Roger, we're waiting for Andrew.
I'm back. I'm here.
Oh, you're here. I'm just looking for Andrew. Are you here? I think he's still stepped away.
Becky, can you refresh my memory on the interview schedule?
So we were, let's see, let me pull it up here. Hill was originally supposed to begin at 4:45, so we're about 20 minutes behind. And then Colliers was at 5:30. So I've asked them to be available for 5:50.
Thank you.
As soon as Andrew's back, we can get started.
Yeah, it's pretty hard when he's the one who can admit people into the room. So
I could do it, but do you want me to give him another minute, Denise?
I think if we start
Yeah.
having people join us, Keith,
I can do that, Greg.
that might save a few minutes.
I'll do that now.
Oh, Andrew's back. That's good.
Hello.
Hi. Will there be more of you or just the two of you?
Yeah, I'm working on it, Denise. It's not exactly rapid fire over here, so I'm getting them in as quick as I can. I think I got them all. Just probably take another 10 seconds. I think we got them all.
Cool, thank you. So good evening, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. This process began with 9 companies submitting proposals to us, and out of the 9, we culled the range down to 4, and those 4 companies are the ones that we are interviewing today, you being one of them. This is a subcommittee of the NERI Building Committee. There are 4 of us, well, there are 5, but one has recused himself. So there's actually 4 of us that will be interviewing and deciding this evening. We'll start out by 10 minutes of an overview that you'll be able to give on your company. And by the way, I'm sorry, we went over a little bit. And then after that, we have a series of questions, which Rebecca has kindly sent to you so that you can actually see them versus us reading them, because they are kind of complex and it's really not fair. So she sent that list of questions, which we will go through. We've posed these questions to everyone to make it fair, and then we'll wrap it up. So if we could, Rebecca, did you send those off?
I sent those to Peter and to Paul.
Cool. Okay. Good.
You have those, Paul?
There's a 30-second delay on our system, so it should get to you.
While you're actually starting your presentation, I'm sure you'll have them momentarily.
Oh, phew. I was thinking you sent them 2 hours ago and I had somehow messed up.
No, we just sent them. Everybody gets them at the start so that, you know, they're not preparing.
There is a club for that, Peter, and I'm a member, so.
Oh, and just so you know, I forgot to say, there was no preferential treatment in the order of these. We just sort of took them at random, and we sort of like picked them out of a hat, so that it's not like we put a lineup that we were already had our minds made up. They're all assorted. So whoever's going to start from Hill, that would be great.
All right, so that would be me. I'm Peter Martini. Rebecca, hi. You said you're looking forward to having me on tonight, so that's why I'm on. First of all, can we share our screen? Because we've had a little PowerPoint.
Sure, gladly. Peter, who would be the one presenting?
Tina, is your name on there, Tina?
Yes.
Tina from Hill.
Can you make co-host, or do I need to?
I think you have to at this point, Andrew, sorry.
Yep, no worries.
Thank you.
I have the power.
Let's just see if we can get that working. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh, fantastic. So I'm Peter
Yes.
Martini. I head up the New England office of Hill International. Paul Callis and I kind of split jobs up as far as principal in charge goes. And Paul's your principal in charge. I'm going to turn it over to Paul. I'll be involved in this job. I'll know what's going on. You'll have my cell number. And thanks for having us. And I'll turn it over to Paul. Paul.
Thanks, Pete. We can go to the next slide, please. And our agenda is really to kind of just do an overview of our company and to talk a little bit about our approach and experience for this project. Next slide, please. My name is Paul Callis. I'd be the principal in charge on this project. I've got some experiences, actually extensive experience doing planning and designing and budgeting of school projects. I'm a registered architect, and I would be involved in the oversight and support of this entire project. In the as Ian will be presenting just kind of a overview of the project. In the first part of the project and the planning part of the project, I will be very much involved. And although I will be involved in the project throughout until closeout, if we're fortunate enough to get this. Next slide, please. Hill, New England, we've been in business here for 27 years. We have done over 80 school construction projects here in Massachusetts over all those years. Over 50 of them are with the MSBA. And this feature that we have, is an advantage to all our clients that we have doing these projects, in that we're able to manage the MSBA project very well in order to be able to make that run smoothly, to be able to get the maximum reimbursement that you can get, and make sure that the cash flow to Becky goes very smooth. And the way that this benefits the town of Southborough is that by having all of this experience and having done all of these, we can, I think we can assure you that you're going to get the best outcome, or at least the outcome that is best for Southborough at the end of the day. On this team with me, next slide, Ian Parks, project director. He lives right across the street from the Finn School. He'll be the main point of contact during design and programming. And as a resident of the town, he's got vested interest. His kids, he coaches the Little League in Southborough, actually. Next slide, please. We also have John Teixeira. He would be the main point of contact during construction and managing the construction end of it, although he would be involved prior to that. Next slide, please. John Cutler, assistant project manager. He lives nearby in Mendon, and he'd be assisting us through all the way through the project, document control, etc. He would augment the construction team when construction starts, but he is basically a utility player that is on our team. And finally, next slide, Steve Parent. He is our proposed construction site manager. He is an expert in construction logistics and planning, as indicated. He's managed numerous projects as a GC and joined our team. And he also benefits any construction project that we have, because he is a former Marine drill instructor, and that comes in handy managing contractors. So I'd like to turn this over next to Ian.
Thanks, Paul. One thing I would add about our team is just the cohesiveness of our team. We've all worked together on previous projects. We've done a number of large school projects together. We work very well together. So that's something that we would bring to the Southborough project as well. Kicking you guys off, after selection of the OPM, we would walk you through modules 2 through 5 with the MSBA, which is about a 2-year time period, August 23 through August 25, in which we would manage the selection of the designer and put out the RFS for those services, a review and make a recommendation to both the town and the MSBA to get the right designer matched up with this project. And once we have a designer on board, we would jump into the feasibility phase. This is where we look at the site options, where we get into the grade configurations, talk about additions, renovations, new construction, look at the full gamut of options with you guys. There is heavy community involvement in this early phases of the project. We want to make sure that everyone in town is engaged, is informed, that the school department is completely engaged. We've got all the various town offices engaged in the project, and we understand really what we need to deliver for the town of Southborough. The end of that feasibility phase is essentially a recommendation to the MSBA Board of Directors for approval for a preferred schematic. And then we would step into the schematic design phase of the project, enhancing the preferred schematic design, putting more detail to it, coming up with a cost and a schedule, and really understanding, what this preferred schematic is going to look like as far as cost and schedule goes. And then getting that approved by the MSBA in late or I guess fall 2025, understanding what their reimbursement and contribution would be at that point, and getting that approved from the MSBA first, and then putting in front of the town for the community to vote on as well. So that is a huge milestone to get past a town meeting and town vote. We've done it successfully many times, and it's certainly an exciting thing when we get past that point, and we can understand exactly the direction that we're headed for cost and schedule and scope on a project. Next slide, please. So this just highlights our experience with sustainable school construction. Almost every project these days has some level of sustainability features to it. So anywhere from net zero to net zero ready, multiple different types of LEED certifications, usually starting at least silver. So this is just highlighting the projects that we've worked on in this office. Again, community engagement, extremely important in a project of this nature for any town. We want to achieve a consensus among the community, among the constituents, and there's a lot of listening and a lot of learning that happens during that process. We've utilized social media, we've utilized surveys, we've done in-person meetings, community forums, coffee hours, whatever we can to really get people engaged in the project, providing feedback and really understanding what the needs of the town are for this particular school. So, in summary here, we know that you are in the business of educating children. We want to help you create an environment, a space in which you can do that really well. This is your mission statement for the Neary School, something that we would fully get behind as well. As Paul mentioned, I'm a member of the community. It's something that I've been tracking. I'm very much interested in. I'm very excited about this project and the opportunity to be involved in it. So I would have the benefit of living in town and kind of hearing the pulse of the project from the community firsthand. So I hope that you guys hire us for this project. That's all we had for presentation tonight. So we just wanted to go through the Q&A with you.
So I think good, thank you. So we can start with the questions, which I hopefully have been able to find, correct?
I have not received them as yet. Here we go. I think they just came in.
Wow. Pony Express.
Coming through in the clutches as good a time as any, I always say.
So our first question is written, and by the way, every firm has been given the same questions, the same 10 questions. So the first question is about past performance. Can you provide examples of projects that your firm has managed that are similar in scope to our Neary project, including building size, adherence to the budget, adherence to the schedule, and the number of accidents and safety violations, outcome of any legal action, as well as share some examples of a project that went exceptionally well and a project that went awry, and how you handle that both scheduling and budget-wise.
Great. I'm gonna quarterback here a bit. So I'm gonna kick that one over to Paul Callis. If you would, Paul.
Well, up until COVID, every one of our projects that we've managed for the MSBA were on budget and on schedule. They are all of, there are a number of elementary schools that we've done. The Estherbrook Elementary School in Lexington, the Hill School in Revere, Park Avenue in Webster. There's quite a number of them. And, in all of them, they all have their hiccups along the way, but, and we've learned something from each of those projects as we've encountered and overcome them. And, but in every case, we've been very good about and on budget on all of these elementary schools that we've done, high schools, middle schools as well. We take great pride in that. And and I think that our proposal had a list of all of the projects that we did, and really, up until COVID, and in this last year, have we encountered some issues with budget and everything and supply chain. But getting back to normal again, we intend to pick back up on that 100% on time and 100% on budget.
Yeah, I think one project that I would highlight that it's 143,000 square foot middle school, and we maintain the design schedule. We hit every single milestone on the design schedule. We're just now getting into construction. We're starting construction on time. We anticipate completing the project on time. And the budget, we were as we were going through the design phase, with the market and the COVID situation, we did have to go back and ask for more money on that project, but we came in on budget as far as the bids coming in on a couple months ago at this point. So it was a huge success in that we were able to plan for the actual cost and what the market conditions were given the circumstances in the world.
A follow-up to that, or part of that, is could you provide us an overview of your communication strategy in all phases of this project with all our stakeholders?
Sure. So, as far as communication goes, communication is key. We want to make sure that you guys are informed on a daily and weekly basis. We hold at least monthly school building committee meetings to talk through normal business. We go through, if we need to, we can set those up on a bi-monthly basis. We have weekly core team meetings with the co-chairs and the town manager on most projects, in which we're communicating regularly with all of the individuals that have a say in the project. So we do a lot of communication on a daily basis, and that's kind of our day-to-day communication strategy.
The second question we have is regarding building code. Could you highlight the pertinent sections of the Mass Building Code that relate to a new school building project and describe the process you would take to address any uncertainties in the interpretation of that code and how you would work with state agencies as well as the town boards and committees to follow town and state codes and bylaws.
Sure. Paul, Steve, you guys want to take a crack at this one?
Yeah, I could start with this one. It's a really interesting question because in the summer, I think probably next month, the state of Massachusetts is going to adopt the 10th edition of the building code. It is based on the International Building Code, and the 10th edition basically amends, the Mass Code amends that. Where the ones that are the part of the code that's going to be trickiest going into this next edition is going to be the stretch code, the energy portion of it, and the requirements that are being adopted as part of the 10th edition. And it will certainly be enforced by the time this construction project starts in 2 or 3 years from now. And the start on this is really begins with meeting with the building inspector, the local building inspector in town, as far as kind of reviewing what items are important to them. The building shall adhere to every bit of the building code. There isn't anything that's really negotiable or anything that comes up that is not going to be done on this project. It absolutely must fully be compliant, not only by a matter of law, but also your funding agreement with the MSBA is going to require it as well. And of course, for that reimbursement, you don't want to violate any of the strings attached with that funding agreement. Where another area where it's tricky is if it's an ad reno project and you got chapter 34 plays a role in that as to what the requirements are that may be slightly different because you're working with an existing structure. And there is definitely some interpretation that goes along with that. By and large, though, for these MSBA school projects, every rule must be followed. Steve, did you want to talk about anything as far as during the construction phase?
Sure. Absolutely. And when I'm on site, I'm in direct contact with the town building inspector on a constant basis. What we have is an open door policy with the building inspector. Okay, I invite him to come to the site as often as possible. My main concern is when it comes to being ADA compliant. Okay, there's always questions about ADA compliance and strictly enforced. The GC or myself or somebody, we may not catch everything to the inch, but as long as I have a walkthrough with the building inspector, along with the GC, we are going to find any problems and make sure we are compliant to the building code. So it's more or less communication, Denise. And, I'm totally engaged in the project. I'm boots on the ground, so I'm there 24/7. If I have any questions whatsoever, I have direct contact with the building inspector and invite him out to the site, and we can go over any type of infirmities that we have to take care of.
Thank you. The next question is management approach and style. Can you elaborate on the management style of your firm and projects related to projects of this size of 90,000 square feet in a public school, either construction or renovation, and describe a time where your firm used a structured approach to solve a problem or resolve a conflict in a timely manner?
Sure. Paul, you want to take a crack at that?
Well, our approach on solving problems on a project of this type is, in a word, is collaborative. Bringing the design team members, representatives from the building committee, ourselves, if the contractor is already on board, at that point that we're under construction, certainly the contractor, because they're also very, very critical to the approach. The process with the MSBA requires that there be regular milestone submittals of the design as the project is completed, and the structured approach to reviewing those any problems and issues that are seen on the drawings by our design reviewers is that comments are articulated, they are presented to the architect, and they are responded to, or they are become, if there's issues with them, reasons why the problem needs to be solved in a different way. It gets discussed in our design meetings when when we're in the design process, and at construction meetings if it goes to construction, but making sure that everybody on the team, it feels like they're part of it, part of the decision making. It's where we start at the beginning of the project, and when we have our first meetings with your committee and with the community, getting people on board to be part of the decision making. Because there is it's kind of like designing and building a building. It's like having a test in school, only it's got like about 1 million questions on it instead of just like 10 or 20. And it's a matter of getting through those the process in which that we do that is getting together, going through it, and trying to solve the ones that are that we can solve on our end, and elevating them to the ones that require more input.
Our next question has to do with capacity and skills. The district, we are interviewing 4 different firms today for this role as the owner's project manager. What value add would your firm bring to the district? Describe in detail what you consider to be the strengths of your firm from a skill perspective and experience perspective, and outline any areas where subcontractors or consultants would likely be needed to fill in any gaps.
Hey, Paul?
Sure.
You mind if I just start that?
Sure.
I got here 7 years ago after working as a general contractor for 35 years, and really was interested in getting into the OPM business. And the reason I selected Hill, and I think the reason why we've had success here, is kind of manyfold. First, we have a group here who's from many different aspects of the industry. We have architects, we have contractors, we have subcontractors, we have people who've owned a restaurant, we've have subcontractors, and all those people kind of brought together. We've had people who have done, who've been in charge of moves and furniture, and that kind of mix of talent here in an office here in Needham that holds 25 people, and we can all communicate and collaborate. It has just been a fantastic difference maker as far as I'm concerned. Number 2 is that being under the thumb of a OPM as a general contractor, we saw the different types of OPM, so we're out there. So we're someone who is here to help the help the contractor, help the architect, and help them get the job done. So we're not pointing fingers, we're here to help. On the same hand, our culture is that we are looking after our client. We're looking after the taxpayer money. We completely understand who we work for and who we answer to, and whose interests we're protecting. Sometimes protecting your interests means to help the contractor out of a situation, help the architect out of a situation. Be someone who can solve conflicts before they turn into larger conflicts. Those two things really set our team apart. We're not here to make our fee by having the contractor give up dollars. The process here is done very above board, and we enjoy the process. And then the last thing is, a lot of us have done work and have built big buildings, and we've done some road work, and we've done some airport work, but we've kind of centered our business here around community engagement, community projects, and we really enjoy, it's kind of why we do this, and we really enjoy the relationships with cities and towns and being able to produce something that has such an effect on a city and town. So what bigger effect can you have than a school that educates? What more effect can you have than a DPW who's providing the work in a town, than a senior center that provides that sort of service, a police station, a fire station. So it's kind of, we're here because we like to do those types of jobs. And then I'll turn it over to you guys, but we can get into the subcontractors a little bit, but we basically can do everything in-house here. We have an estimating department, but it's not based in our office. So on projects such as yours, we subcontract out the estimating. We've got 2 or 3 firms we work with all the time who have experience in this. We've recently been worked with on 3 or 4 jobs, and the jobs have come in good, and everything has been reconciled. So, and then I'll just hand it over to Paul to get into some specifics for the rest of you and what other subcontractors we might bring. But as far as we're involved in ed planning here. We make sure that architects' feet are held to the fire and making sure during the interview process that they can do educational planning. As far as lead, which I think we'll get into in some of the other questions, we have the expertise in house to do that. We've worked with other firms like the Green Engineer, et cetera. The MSBA, of course, is the one who has you guys, or they hire the commissioning agent. So if you guys want to add on to that, thanks.
The only thing that I'd want to add is that very soon after you select your OPM, you'll be going out for a selection of a designer, and the architect is ultimately responsible for the design of the building. So many of the consultancies that you may want to think about doing as directly, such as the property survey, soil borings, geotechnical reports, things like that. We would urge you that we build that into the RFP for the architect, to make sure that they're in a situation where they're utilizing their own consultant to do those various things. So they're responsible for it. So if they didn't include enough borings, or the borings in the right place because of the design, they are ultimately responsible for that, and not looking to the owner saying, well, gee, you didn't get the borings in the right place or something. But any of those consultancies are at our avail through us. And but at the same time, we urge that they go through the architect.
The other thing, Paul, that I think we need to point out is that we're project managers. We're a local project management company, and that's what we do. We do owner's project management. Hill International does owner's project management. We don't do design. We don't do real estate. We don't do contracting. We do owner's project management. So that's what you're going to get here. When the OPM industry proliferated 20-25 years ago with the passing of the public procurement laws, Hill was there. I mean, that was it. I mean, Paul Callis had a hand in the writing of those laws. They needed somebody. Hill was already doing that sort of work around the country and doing it here. A lot of other firms, they're good firms. New England, I've always said, and particularly the Boston area, is filled with good contractors, good architects, and good owner project managers. So, you've got whoever you hire is gonna do a good job, but that's what we focus on. That's all. That's our business.
So leading into, not to be pun, not to make a pun, but could you describe the advantages and disadvantages of the district in pursuing LEED certification or net zero school building, providing examples of your past experience and performance in green buildings?
Oh, you want to take that one?
Okay. Well, one of the biggest and most distinct advantages of pursuing LEED is that it's required to be LEED certifiable in your project funding agreement with the MSBA. So that's that is required. And a enhanced, or if you get LEED silver or above, you'll also get a little extra reimbursement from the MSBA. So right off the bat, that's a win for the district in the form of a slightly higher reimbursement. Then you have the advantages of saving energy. For the building that you're going to build is going to last 50 to 100 years. That's a 50 or 100 years of energy savings that you have for any building with that long lifespan. Year after year after year after year, you continue saving money from not spending money on fuels. So it's definitely a win, for all of those reasons. Trying to describe a disadvantage of doing it with all of those pluses, is rather difficult. We've done the first net zero school that's in Watertown. We're doing a net zero ready school in Swampscott currently. We manage the construction of the first sustainable timber structure building in Massachusetts, which is the Oliver Design Building at UMass Amherst. That's made of sustainable timber. So we've got lots of experience in all forms of sustainability and building performance.
Our next question is about life cycle cost analysis. Could you provide us examples where life cycle cost analysis have provided a benefit to your customers in the past, and elaborate on the importance of this skill set in the MSBCA process?
Yeah, so Paul kind of alluded to it a little bit as far as the benefit. You're planning for a 50-year or more building, so you want to make sure that you're selecting the right equipment, that you're selecting the right materials, so that you're getting 50 years out of this, and not only looking at the construction cost, but what it's going to cost you to operate that building during that time frame. So it's a huge benefit to do this type of analysis, so that you know exactly what you're going to be spending after you occupy the building, after the building's constructed. So it's something that needs to be done on every job.
Yeah, and I think if I'm not sure whether we had it in our proposal to you, but there's an analysis we do that has a checklist that says, well, let's pick a piece of HVAC equipment, a rooftop unit. What are the options? What are the initial costs of all of them? What's the maintenance cost of all of them? What does it put off as far as energy goes? And what's the lifespan? Is it 10 years? Is it 20 years? And what's the sustainability aspect of it? There's going to have to be trade-offs. So you're going to have to decide in some instances to go with a low initial cost. That might not give you the greatest payback on that particular item, but that's not always the perfect answer. So we have it. We have the sheet. We do the analysis and get together and figure it out together.
And our last question is building commissioning. Could you describe to the subcommittee the purpose of building commissioning, consultants and the advantage to the district that this process provides when executed appropriately.
Sure. So I like to think of building commissioning as a means of, achieving the desired design of the systems. And so, hiring a consultant, that is an expert that does this day in and day out, the MSBA will essentially pay for and assign a commissioning agent to the project. So they've got you covered on that front. It's a very important aspect of the job, in making sure that the way the systems are designed, they actually function that way in the end. And there's a lot of back and forth that gets you to that point for all the various systems on the project, including the building envelope, and making sure that you're testing and retesting and hitting the the design criteria for those things. So it's really testing the design, making sure that you're achieving what you intended to achieve at the end result. It doesn't do us any good to have a design that can't be achieved. So they need to make tweaks and necessary adjustments to bring that design into reality, essentially.
I'd like to ask the commission, ask the board if they have any questions. The committee of this company. School department, anybody? Roger?
I don't want to pretend I'm Mark, but in your walkthrough, what struck you as any, I guess, concerns you might have, just initially? And I know whatever the walkthrough time was it 45 minutes, something like that? I'm not sure how long it took, but you're not going to be able to kind of spot everything. But did anything strike you as a concern? And if so, what would it have been?
I had one.
Yep.
And that is looking up at the, when we were in, I think it was like a boiler room or something where there was an exposed ceiling. Saw that the steel bar joist spacing was extremely far apart, and which is something that was done. And you brought up the idea of talking about building code back when the Neary School was built, and in that whole era, structures were lean and mean on schools. They could be able to withstand, a decent snow load. It could withstand, some guys working up there, but not both at the same time. They were really, really thin. And that is something about the existing building that, if looking at doing the renovation of that building as opposed to replacing it, is going to be it would be a big number to augment that structure in order to meet current building codes.
Any other questions? We just have a couple of questions, kind of housekeeping issues. One is your availability to negotiate a contract next week. Would you be available to negotiate a contract if we decided on Hill tonight?
Right now,
Yeah.
ready to go.
We're ready to go to do the work. And as far as putting together a work plan and handling the negotiations with you, Paul and I are around and ready, willing, and able to go. So we're here.
And secondly, would you be ready if you received a contract and we had favorable terms? Would you be ready to get started immediately, which is what we want to do?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're looking to do. The terms aren't the terms are the terms. We're not going to we don't have any problem with the contract we've seen. We're not going to have a problem with it. We like to get going right away. I mean, we've learned a lot just by reading through the reports, reading your RFP, putting together our proposal, talking to you today. So the earlier we can get going, the more we're going to be able to use that knowledge and just move. So.
And you don't have any competing projects that would interfere with personnel on our project?
Nope. We don't. I mean, we're right now, we've got, we need a project in design. We've got several projects right now that are starting construction or started construction a year ago or a year and a half ago that are finishing up. And we've been busy. And you look at the amount of work we're managing now, it's because we're managing a lot of construction. All that construction work is coming to an end, like it always does. And we are actively seeking a job that is going into this exact phase you guys are looking at.
Well, I thank you very much, and sorry that we were a little bit lax on time, but appreciate your presenting to us tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
You guys want 5 minutes before we move on? Probably a good idea. To
I'll
stretch.
accept. I'll accept.
Cool.
Yeah, Becky, I went into GEMS. Looked at the Title IV.
Yep.
I went to funding. But there's no place for me to approve. And I received an error message.
It was in a weird place because Stephanie had to show me where it was the other day.
You don't have access. But let me. It was application supplements. And then it was Title IV, Part A, data collection, I believe.
Yep.
And then change status to DESI Title IV, Part A, data collection reviewed, or edits needed.
I thought
then-
it was to, yeah, I thought it was to then approve it.
But it says
to the
LEA
end.
fiscal represented approved,
So maybe that's as far as it needed to go.
probably. Because when I change status to, yeah, there's no other.
Because I'm
No.
looking, yeah. Alan, we're just waiting for the rest of the committee to return, and then we will promote your team to the Zoom.
So we can deal with it tomorrow, Becky. I just was. Stephanie gave me a directive today.
Oh, yeah, see.
You gave me one too.
Yeah. So we missed.
Denise, are you comfortable? Can I start promoting them?
Yes, please. Is Andrew back?
Yep.
Okay, good. Yep.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I was listening, but I couldn't see or change my video, so my apologies if I was messing something up here technologically, but
Not at all. Sorry for the delay, Alan.
that's okay, Keith. That's all right. Just making sure that I have my full set of people here. I think we're still waiting for two more to join us.
Okay, I think I got them as there's been a little bit of delay with Zoom, but they seem like they're coming in now. We'll give it a couple seconds.
Okay, here comes Tim Alex, and we also have Todd Ashford.
There we go. I think we got them.
Perfect. All righty.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Denise Eddy. I'm the vice chair of this committee. And to let you know our process, we had 9 firms that put in an application for this project manager. We spent the weekend reviewing all of the proposals. We culled them down to 4. And this afternoon and this evening, we have interviews with 4 firms, yours being one of them. The interview process was not set up in any particular order. It was done in a lottery fashion so that no one was either first or last. The process tonight will be asking you to present to us an overview, and then we will in fact have some questions. We have 10 questions that we have posed to everyone. Becky is sharing those questions because they are a little complex, and I think it's easier for you to be able to see them versus just listening to me read them. So she should be sending them to one of you anyway, right, Beck?
Yes, I sent them to Alan. So yeah, I just hit send, so give it a few minutes.
So by the time we get through the proposal, I'm sure you'll have the questions.
Okay, very good. Did you have a lead in that you want to do other than that, or would you like us to just get going?
You can get going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let me get started. Tim, can you share our presentation?
Yeah, I need just the
Permission?
ability, permission, yeah.
Andrew, would you mind? Oh, well done.
Should be good to go, Tim.
You're getting good at that, Andrew.
Almost like I've done this before.
Don't leave it up to me.
Okay, well, thank you for having us here. I'm Alan Minkus, and we're appreciative of being shortlisted here. I'm going to do a very quick 5-minute introduction of the firm, and then I'm going to turn it over to Tim Alex of our firm to do another 5 minutes of a little bit more in depth, and then we can turn into the questions and answers and let you meet some of the other people on our staff. But a little bit about the company. If you can go to the next slide, Tim. That The company was started by two gentlemen, John Winokur and Mel Overmeyer in 1996. And we started it just for this purpose, to be owners project managers, primarily for educational clients. And that's remained our focus for over the last 27 years. It's important to realize that we don't do design services, nor are we contractors. We don't build anything. But that said, we do have licensed professionals on our staff, licensed architects and engineers, as well as professionals from the construction side of the business to support us. Our services are focused on being advocates for you and being your technical resources, and to also guide you through the MSBA's requirements in their process. Next slide, Tim. A little bit about our team. I'm a managing director. My focus is on quality assurance for the project team performance and your ultimate satisfaction of our services. Tim Alex is your project director. He's assuring that all resources for the project are available from our company, and will manage the team members as the project progresses. Adam D'Alessio is the project manager, and he's responsible for handling the day-to-day needs for the project from design through closeout, and his focus is going to be on cost, quality, and schedule. And then we have Todd Ashford. Todd Ashford is a construction representative. During design, Todd's focus will be for quality review of the design documents, looking for gaps and things like that to communicate back to the design team. And during construction phase, he will be the boots on the ground, monitoring the construction of the project as required by MSBA every day of the week. Also with us tonight, we have Tao Wen. Tao supports us heavily in the financial tracking and working with the MSBA's ProPay system. And she's assigned to whatever degree is necessary for correctly coding and submitting and making sure that the reimbursements are coming regularly and as quickly as possible to keep your cash flow going. So you're using the MSBA's cash instead of your own cash or for Southborough's cash, and which is very helpful. We have a lot of experience with the MSBA on projects, as well as great relationships with the people at MSBA. We've been working with them for quite a long time. And this is critical in understanding how they procure and get work and provide the grant. And our goal is to secure you the maximum grant available from the MSBA for your project. Next slide, Tim, please. As mentioned, you can see here that we have a lot of experience in the Commonwealth. We have over 50 MSBA projects that we've worked on. We have a whole lot of other educational projects that you can see here. And it's the list on the left is all the more recent elementary schools that we've worked on. Quite a few in close proximity to Southborough. And then on the right, you can see some more elementary schools and also a few of our higher educational schools, high schools, middle schools. We do a lot of technical schools as well, agricultural schools, Bristol Aggie, Cape Cod Tech. And about 13 years ago, we worked at just up the road from you at Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School as well. But let me now turn it over to Tim, and Tim can go into a little bit more relevant experience to Southborough's project for the NARI school.
Thanks, Alan. First off, I'd just like to say we're excited about this opportunity. We worked on the Northborough Lincoln Elementary School, Lincoln Street Elementary School project a few years back. So we'd be excited to work on your project as well. We took what Alan had showed you as far as a large number of school projects and tried to find a few that really had the same challenges that you're facing in Southborough, and we didn't have to look too far back. These are all 4 recent projects with really similar dynamics, similar challenges that you're facing, face these communities and these schools as well. So on the left-hand side, Lincoln Street Elementary School, a very similar situation, and Burrell Elementary School in Foxborough right below that, similar. They didn't change their grade configuration or their student population. So these two challenges on these schools were met with just add renovation projects. We did have to do swing space on both, but we approached that a little bit differently. On Lincoln Street, we used modulars to act as our swing space. That project was an addition of a gymnasium, a music suite, and then the dominoes that took place of taking their existing gym, turning that into a new media center, other admin spaces, and then a complete renovation, working our way around the building. Down below at Burrell and Foxborough, instead of bringing in modulars, which aren't reimbursable by the MSBA, what we did was we did an addition and renovation to this building as well. We built on one wing 4 additional kindergarten classrooms, and then on the other wing, at the end of that wing, we built a new gymnasium. But prior to fitting it out as a gymnasium, we built a shell and then used that shell space and divided that up into 6 classrooms and used those as our swing space as we worked our way around the building. So again, similar issues, solved them slightly differently. We were able to use the existing buildings, both successful projects. We just got word that Burrell got the LEED Gold in on Northborough and Lincoln Street. It was Northeast Chips at the time. On the right-hand side, Templeton Elementary School and East Meadow Elementary School in Granby also had different challenges, but those ended up being consolidations as well. So we changed the grade configuration on both of these projects. On Templeton, it was 3 different schools where students were combined from 3 different areas. The building turned out to be a pretty large building, 93,000 square feet on a very small site in the center of town. So community involvement and bringing people in along the way and letting them know the decisions that were made and why they were made along the way made this a very successful project. At East Meadow, that project was also a consolidation, and what we did was we combined 2 schools in town, renovating, first phase was to really build a new building, basically doubling the size of the existing East Meadow School, and then using that as our swing space, and then going back, renovating the existing facility, and then the following year, bringing all those students back to the single campus of their whole district, their high school, middle school, and now their elementary students were all on the same campus. So we face similar challenges, but we've dealt with them in slightly different ways, depending upon the different dynamics that each community faced. I'm sorry, Alan, did you want to say something?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. So I'll move on from relevant experience, just as to I mentioned, but communicating with the community, keeping people informed of what's going on in order to have a successful project, a successful outcome. You need support from the community, and we do get that support by informing them, educating them, bringing them along, and letting them know the decisions that are made as they're being made, and not kind of dropping a project in their laps at the end of the project. So starting off with visioning, with bringing in community members, staff members, students, and getting them to think about how do they define or how do they see education in Southborough for the next 50 years. Your existing building is roughly 50 years old, and if you think about what the thoughts and processes that were running through their minds at the time that they designed it, we're going to be going through a similar process. But then from that, we'll define some goals that we want to see for the project, but then we want to bring people along for during the design, community forums, public outreach, social media, all of those things, so that questions, honestly, that can come up early in the project, and some things that we wouldn't have thought about, maybe the community will bring up as concerns or good ideas, and we can incorporate. All that can do is just minimize the amount of people coming out at the last minute with negative information, and that you didn't think about this or you didn't do this, and we can point back to our history and show that no, we did think about that, and this is why we made this decision. They can disagree with the decision, but at least it's been out there and people are informed all the way through. And then Just finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about green technology and sustainability. We've been involved with the green building design movement from the beginning of LEED. We have some of the earliest certified LEED buildings in the country. You know, I am a LEED accredited professional as well as others in our team. At our firm, we have a commissioning group, but obviously we can't do commissioning and OPM on the same MSBA project. But we have that ability to go to our technical experts and talk about different strategies, because not all green technologies and strategies are appropriate for all buildings. Some come with more cost than others. Some are really you're getting your biggest bang for your buck on a much larger project or than this particular project. So it's not one size fits all. We've been doing it for a long time. We understand those complexities, and being able to guide you on the pros and cons of different strategies and following through so that we can get an accredited building at the end.
Well, with that, Tim, if you can go to the next slide, I think that's the 10 minutes we wanted to do our quick presentation that we can, we have some backup slides. If the questions pertain to that, we can pull up some things to show you. But why don't we get into the questions now and give you some answers.
Adam, do you have the questions? Did you finally get them?
I am going to my email right now, and yes, I do. Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So our first question is about past performance, and could you provide examples of projects that your firm managed that are similar in scope, which I know you've talked about this a little bit, but we're posing all these questions to everybody, the same question.
Sure.
The firm has managed in similar scope to the NERI project, including our building site, adherence to budget, adherence to schedule, number of accidents and safety violations, an outcome of any legal action, and please share examples of a project that went exceptionally well and a project with challenges and how you navigated those challenges, adhering to the budget and to schedule in both situations.
Okay, well, Tim, do you want to, I mean, Tim, you had shown some of the examples that we thought were fairly close to size to the NERI elementary school. So I hope we answered that question with those 4 schools that we showed you, some being a little, add renos and some being renovations. But the balance of the question, Tim, do you have a particular job in mind that you thought went better than another one? I think they've all gone well. I can say we've had no legal actions.
Budget, on schedule, no.
You broke up there, Tim.
Oh, I'm sorry. No safety issues, on budget.
Tim, you're cutting out, Tim.
Maybe it's the headset.
Yeah, so I can speak to Granby East Meadow was the ad reno that Tim and I both worked with together on, and it was a very successful project. The challenges of doing an ad reno, we had to, as Tim mentioned, renovate the existing building after we built the new addition, and then move the kids into the addition so we can do that renovation. So there was a lot of coordination. There was a lot of working with the design team, the contractor, to make sure that safety was the #1 priority during these types of projects. So we go through a very technical and very thorough phasing plan for all these projects to make sure that safety is the first thing that is our main priority. So we make sure that we have the safety fences in place. We work with the district to make sure that, that everybody's aware of the logistics plans, and things change with parent drop off and school buses, and it can change throughout a project. So just because we set it up one way to start a project doesn't mean it's going to end that way. So there's definitely a key to this is being very open communication and making sure that we're working with the district and with the school and with the principal to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We make sure we have plenty of meetings ahead of time to ensure that safety. So we have been very lucky to be on projects that safety wise, no incidents, at least that I can think of in any of my projects that I can think of that jump out at me. But safety is definitely a number one priority for us.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have the questions. I'm not sure if you can hear me well now, but just echoing what Adam said about safety has not been an issue, and a lot of it is due to the pre-planning of separation of students and construction contractors and construction access, bus pickup and drop off. A lot of those details being worked out and coordinated with the contractor, with the fire department, with the police department, with the school administration, all have led to zero issues with students. And honestly, with contractors as well. We haven't had any accidents on these projects. And I don't have the rest, the balance of that question. I'm sorry.
Tim, I did send.
And we understand kind of the frustration sometimes with shifting things around with parents, you know, in the community, and you know, where do I drop my kids off, because they want to make sure that their kids are safe. So we make sure that, you know, like I said, we make sure a good logistics plan is in place, and that gets posted to a website. It gets emailed out to parents, and so we want to make sure all that stuff is known ahead of time, because we understand that having a construction project is never easy. And there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and it's important that we keep that communication open, not only internally, but within the community as well.
All right, I'll move on to the next part of that same question, which is a working relationship. Can you provide us an overview of your communication strategy in all phases of this project, with all stakeholders?
Sure. Let me start with that one. I think that first of all, we're your advocates. We need to protect Southborough first and foremost. That this is your school. By the time it gets all done, we cannot let the architects run amok, for lack of a better term. They need to design to the budget. They need to provide the quality documents so that they don't run over budget, and they need to maintain the schedule. You'll hear that a lot from us, that the three things that we really do is the budget control, schedule control, and quality control. And the quality control is not only in the construction, but also in the construction documents that are prepared, so they minimize change orders, because if they're not, if change orders just get out of hand once they're after the fact. But that the communication strategy with us is that we would be reporting to the school building committee folks, and providing them with the information at hand. We'd be setting up and writing the RFP for the design teams, and keeping you informed of that, having you review our work as we go along, and coming to the school building committee meetings, which typically are once a month. Once we have an architect on board, we're bringing them into the fold. And one thing I will say in Massachusetts is there's really only a handful of architects that have done MSBA work. Probably 10 to 12 firms handle most of the work there. And in the same regard, there's a handful of contractors or construction managers that have performed the work in Massachusetts as well. And we have worked with most all of them. So we have a past working relationship with these people. So there's a little bit of kumbaya when we're getting back together again on another project after we've previously worked on one. But we form that bond with the design team, as well as with the contractor or CM. And we work as a team to present to Southborough and the committee at Southborough the strategies that are taking place, making sure they're to what the visioning session has shown that we need to do. And we report that from the school committee. We'll report that up to from the school building committee up to the school committee, and also to the authorities having jurisdiction within Southborough, to make sure that we're checking all the boxes, that make sure that we're not running too wild on the project, and making sure that it's to your satisfaction. And again, we talked about the visioning sessions and the things we did with getting the vote out to the community. That if the community is not supporting it, there won't be a positive vote. If there's no positive vote, there won't be a project. So it's important that, as Tim said earlier, we start at very early on with letting everybody know what the visioning is and what we're achieving, and listen back, and we talk and we listen, and then we implement things that everybody's agreeing upon that need to be implemented in the project. So that's the process that starts right in the beginning and goes right to the end, and building that familiar questions asked and answered, and put that on the website so that everybody can look at that if they don't feel like voicing their opinion.
That actually
And we're-
segues, I'm sorry, into our second question, which is, could you highlight the information on pertinent code that of the sections of the code that relate to the new school building project, and describe the process you would take to address any uncertainties in the interpretation of that code, and also how you would work with state agencies as well as our local town boards and committees to follow town and state code and bylaws.
Tim, you're in the midst of that right now at Amherst. You want to take a first stab at that?
Sure. So obviously life safety, you know, the fire department, working with just the different entities in town, the police department, a planning review board or design review board, making sure we understand what might be unique about your community as far as any of your bylaws. And we work with the design team to make sure that that they're designing a building that meets all the state and federal codes. We go through design reviews at each phase of the project, where we'll look at the documents and question and bring and highlight certain things if we have questions or see anything. But we'll also have schedule a page turn opportunities with the local fire department or the police department and talk about their concerns. You know, hey, what kind of fire truck do you guys use? What's your turning radius on that vehicle? Can it get behind the building if we have if we need to access around 360 degrees around the building? Things like that. I think again, it ties to your other question about communication. And I think active or early and often would be the answer to highlight on the communication with the leadership, the building committee, but then all the other entities in town. You know, we have a project recently where they did a fire drill post occupancy of the building. A new building official is in town now, and he questioned the fact that when you're in a stair tower, you can't get back into the corridors and the doors lock behind you. You can certainly get out of the corridors, but they questioned the fact that those doors lock, and that was a design consideration that was discussed with the building committee and with the owner during design to prevent in a non-fire egress emergency, where if to prevent people from getting in the building, pulling a fire alarm and then having all the doors unlocked. So there's always interpretation of the code, but making sure we talk about it before we install it and implement it is critical.
Yeah, and locally, while we're during design, we meet with the planning board, we meet with conservation committee. Usually those are multiple meetings to ensure that the design is going to be approved through both those committees. And then code wise, we also have the new structure code that's coming out that's going to make a lot of changes for these new buildings and renovations. So that's something, when that comes out, we're going to have to, make sure that everybody's kind of up to snuff on the new energy code and just make sure that they're complying to all the regulations.
Our next question relates to management. Can you elaborate on the management style that your firm would have on our project or projects of the same scale in public school construction or renovation, and describe a time when your firm used a structured approach to solve a problem or resolve a conflict in a timely manner?
Well, I would say our management approach is, first of all, getting a project understanding that everybody is on the same page as far as knowing what the scope of the project is and what the needs are. And then, also the community outreach approach is to getting that message out to the community so that we're hearing back from them as to what they all are looking for the project to evolve to. from that point on, the MSBA is pretty regimented, and it's almost a box checking thing that you go through step one and check that box, step two, check that box. So the different modules that MSBA requires certain things. And within that, it's very structured that the deliverables have to be all put together and acknowledged by not only the design team, but by the district as well. And that we have to manage that whole process before we can submit to the MSBA for them to review each step of the way, whether it be the feasibility during the feasibility with the preliminary design program, the PDP, or then the step after that program is put together to do the PSR, the preferred schematic report. All those are steps that are very regimented by the MSBA, and we follow that as a guideline, and it almost makes it somewhat easy because you have a checklist that you have to hit all those marks and check off all those boxes before MSBA is even going to review it with their staff. So in that regard, I would say that on all our projects, that MSBA projects, that is our management style, whether it be 90,000 square foot public school, or in the case of Diamond Tech down in Fall River, 400,000 square foot facility. It's $250 million worth of construction costs. The small ones take as much effort as the large ones to make sure that you've checked all the boxes and that you've gotten the MSBA sign off on those things. The second part of the question, describe a time where your firm used a structured approach to solve a problem or resolve a conflict in a timely manner. I think that goes back to what I just said, that if we won't submit to the MSBA, we set up a schedule and we try to make that schedule work to the MSBA's board meetings so that the staff has time to review the things and then submit it to their board for approval. And so if the design team or the contractor or somebody has not checked off or done what they need to do, or we haven't done what we need to do, it's not going to be submitted to the MSBA. So it's an ongoing management of making sure that all those criteria, are checked and get it in and move the process along and stay on schedule. As I said before, cost, quality, and schedule are what we strive to deliver here.
Our sixth question is, the district is interviewing, as I said before, 4 firms for the owner's project manager's role. What value added would your firm bring to this district? Could you describe in detail what you consider the strengths of your firm from a skill set and expertise perspective, and outline any areas where subcontractors or consultants would likely be needed to fill in any gaps?
Okay, well, let me start with the subcontractors. We don't hire any subcontractors to do the work, with the exception of the estimators. They have the most current information on what the square foot costs or building costs are, especially in Massachusetts. We typically choose from 1 or 2 firms. PM&C is one firm, and AM Fogarty is the other firm. And at every phase of the project, both in schematic design development, and then 3 times during and then also twice during the construction documents at 60% and 90%. We both those estimators put together an estimate for the project, and then we sit down and have a day-long session where we reconcile those estimates so we know that the project's staying on budget. So in that regard, that's the only outside consultant that we'd bring in to help us with our work here to manage the project. What sets us apart, I think, from some of our other firms, I think, is the fact that we have a commissioning group. And as Tim said before, the commissioning group cannot work on the same project as the OPM. That commissioning group does do a lot of MSBA commissioning work. So we know what they're expecting and what to look for. But I think just because they can't work on an OPM project or assignment that we would have, we still utilize those people to run design checks for us when we have the schematics, when we have the design development, or when we have construction documents. They're doing those document checks to make sure that the mechanical system is what's needed for the building, number one, that is not too sophisticated. A lot of these systems are getting so sophisticated now that the normal people that operate or the facility have a hard time knowing how to do that without having the engineer standing right next to them telling them. But make sure that they're right at the same level as they should be for a building of this size. So I think that's the real thing that sets us apart, I believe, is the fact that we have that commissioning group where most of our competitors do not have a commissioning arm within the company that can work side by side with them.
Okay. And our next question is, can you describe the advantages and the disadvantages of the district in pursuing LEED certification or net zero building, providing examples of past performance and past examples and experience in high performance green buildings?
Sure. Well, I did a little talking last time, Tim or Adam.
Yeah, let me start off by saying whether you go with LEED, whether you go with a net zero approach or a CHIPS approach, it used to be where we would have to sell the benefits of sustainable and green technology, and now I think people see it as a win-win. You know, you have lower operating and maintenance costs on your building with these technologies, the right technologies. They're not all one size fits all, but there are tests out there that show that you have better occupant satisfaction with the building, reduced absenteeism, higher test scores. So there's just a lot of reasons why it just makes sense. It's good business to do it. It's a good. It is a win-win. So depending upon whether you want to take it to that next level and go net zero, you know, there's different options out there, and we'll be able to kind of walk you through some of the pros and cons of each. You know, some of examples of past high performance experience. We just mentioned that the Foxborough project received a LEED Gold just within the past couple of weeks. We showed you that slide that showed the number of projects that we've done, and it was probably, I don't know, maybe almost 20 years ago when we were working on a project which was one of the first LEED certified science centers in the country. And so we've been doing it for a long time. And as the ideas and approaches change, and you know, geothermal is really seems to be the future direction that a lot of projects are going. But taking all of those in and being able to help guide you, I think, are some of the advantages that we can bring to the table, and all of our projects we go through are, you know, LEED Silver isn't a big stretch anymore, and so I would say that all of our MSBA projects are probably at least LEED Silver.
The other thing I'll add to that is it's you're trying for the maximum reimbursement, as I said earlier, from MSBA, and if you have New England CHIPS or LEED Silver, you get, I believe it's 2 percentage points more for your reimbursement, which, you know, you certainly don't want to give that away. You want to get the state to pay as much as the cost of the school as possible.
Your ninth question is, could you provide examples where life cycle cost analysis have provided a benefit to your customers in the past, and elaborate on the importance of this skill set in the MSBA process? Excuse me.
I have one thought on that, and maybe Adam, you can elaborate. But I'll think of a project we did recently where the soils, this condition of the soils were suspect. They had a lot of problems on their existing site, and so what we ended up doing was really reinforcing under the drive areas, bus drop off, loading dock areas with a reinforcing material, which, yes, added cost, but really in the long run is going to prevent the need for replacement of some of the asphalt surfaces for a much longer period of time.
Right. Yeah, and I think we also, we did a thicker layer of asphalt there and, just looking at situations where, maybe some walkways called for asphalt and putting in, concrete, like Tim said, it might be a little bit extra cost, but those walkways are going to last a lot longer than doing an asphalt walkway. So we look at certainly situations like that is going to extend the life of the building. Maintenance wise, it's going to create a better situation as well, because it's a big area to maintain, and you want your product to last.
Yeah, obviously with mechanical equipment too, that's a big expense on a project, and we want to make sure that it's the right sized equipment.
Tim, we lost you.
Um,
There we go.
Yeah, so we want to make sure that the equipment is maintainable, and whether that's figuring out if there's a penthouse or an area to keep the equipment within the building, or providing the right access to that equipment, so to make sure that it's more likely to be serviced on a regular basis. Those are some of the smaller incidental items that really impact the life cycle of the equipment and the ultimate cost to the district.
Our last question is, could you describe to us the purpose of building commissioning consultants and the advantage to the district in this process and how it provides when executed appropriately?
Yeah, I can start with that. First and foremost is the MSBA pays for it, which is the best thing, that it doesn't come from the district to pay for it. And we do commissioning, MSBA commissioning, like I said, when we are not the OPMs on it. And it's the type of thing that the mechanical systems are getting very sophisticated now. So you want to make sure that they're being installed properly, that the valves are going in the right direction. You need those commissioning agents out there, not only before construction to review the documents, but also during construction, make sure that they're being installed properly. Not only mechanical systems, but also commissioning on the windows, that you put windows in and you have to test those windows to make sure they're not leaking. You don't want the project to be finished up and all of a sudden, 2 years down the road, you find you get a heavy storm and now you've got water infiltrating the building and you got damage there. So roof, windows, mechanical systems, all the active systems that the building has, all the dynamic things in the building. It's very important to have that commissioning consultant in there, not only, like I said, during the design documents preparation, but also during the construction. And then they do it 10 months after the final occupancy of the building. The MSBA will not close out the project until the commissioning agent has come back and signed off on that. So you not only get to see the value of commissioning agent immediately, once the building's built, but 10 months later, the building better work the way it was supposed to work, or someone's going to have to come back in and fix it, namely the contractor or the subcontractor on whatever system it is that's malfunctioning. And I think, again, I'll repeat it, that the fact that we have building commissioning people in-house that we can turn to and be a second set of eyes out there at no additional cost to the district, on top of the commissioning firm that the MSBA provides, just as belts and suspenders. And I think that's always a good thing to have. And when these buildings are getting upwards in cost of millions and millions of dollars now.
Yeah, and we work closely with the commissioning agent on each project. We want to make sure that we're tying their open items or punch list items back to the contractor's pay rec, because we don't want to, pay the contractor 100% of the funds and there's still commissioning items that are open. So it's kind of, another checklist that we have that we can say, okay, we're going to make sure that these systems are running 100%, even after that 10 months, to make sure that everything, all the boxes are checked, it's running the way it should be before we actually, release final payment. So it's another, check and balances that we have that we go through.
Yeah, I would just add on, not to pile on, but the commissioning agent is hugely important in being able to understand the intent of the design, especially from a mechanical standpoint, and review the documents, review the submittals, making sure that you're following through with construction. And, you know, as a OPM, we're involved in that too, and we can look at that. They have a higher level of understanding of these very sophisticated systems. You know, it used to be a valve, you could see it moving and you could see mechanically what was happening, but with so much computer, remote lighting controls, all sorts of things that you really don't know if they're working efficiently until the building is tested, and then you do that performance testing. So that level of consistency of following all the way through, and being able to actually test the building. You know, if you were to get to the end and you find out things aren't working properly, sometimes it can be really difficult to go back to the beginning and really then you find out, well, okay, that air handler doesn't work with that control system. So knowing that up front and being able to go through that process is really a huge advantage of a commissioning consultants.
I'd like to open this up to the committee if they have any questions of this company. No, seeing no questions. Oh, do we? I can't see anybody, so I'm not sure. I only see a few people on my screen.
Mark had his hand up, but he's on mute.
Oh, okay, good. Mark, you're on mute.
Oh, I'm here. I beat Roger to the punch.
Thank you.
You took a tour of the building and got a chance to see what we've got there. Is there anything that caught your eye or something insurmountable that we haven't talked about or you saw that we might want to be aware of?
I would say it's a standard building that was built in 1970. It's held up well. You've maintained it well. You know, it's served you well for these number of years. I think what we're faced with that's most important right now is the fact that it's not 21st century education that's going on, because it was designed for 1970 education. And things have changed. The electrical is maxed out, as you know. Everything's getting a little tired, you know, as it gets older. It's just time to refurbish it completely and add to it to give you the space that you need to perform the educational programs that the students need these days. But as far as anything that jumped out and the building itself, I can't think of anything offhand.
Okay.
Any other questions? So we just have a couple of questions, just housekeeping issues. One is if in the eventuality we do agree to a contract with you or offer you a contract, I should say, would you be willing to enter into negotiation as soon as next week?
Yes, we would. Yeah, if 4th of July may be a little iffy, but yeah, depending on everybody's schedule, but definitely.
And the second question I had was, if we came to an agreement, would you then be able to begin work right away?
Yes, in fact, I have a anticipated capacity slide that maybe Timmy, if we can still share. I can put that we do analysis before we put together the team for you. And if Tim can bring that up, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm just a little slow on the trigger, but bear with me. I got too many different things open here, and I'm trying to find that capacity one. Here it is.
So you can see from this here are the people that we're meeting with tonight from our group. Here are the projects along the top, with of course Southborough being the first one, the Neary Elementary School, but then the other projects that this handful of people are addressing right now in their daily schedules. And you can see that nobody's over 100%, and that's including working on the Neary Elementary School. So we do have capacity. We're ready to start immediately. We do need the work, so we'd love to work with you. We have a past relationship with your cousin Northborough, as you know, and the district being, you know, we started that one with Charles Corbin, and then with Mrs. Johnson, who became superintendent there. So, I mean, we know that we work with the district. We'd love to work with the district again and particularly with Southborough and on your project, and we do have the capacity.
So that answers us our third question, which was you don't have competing projects that would take away from us.
Not at all. This group that we handpicked for this project we handpick them for a purpose so that we don't get into a bind where somebody is tied up on some other project and just cannot break loose to be doing what they're supposed to be doing for Southborough.
And do you have any questions of us?
No, it seems you're moving very quickly. This is always an interesting forum to be doing a presentation in. We typically like to meet face to face, but we understand that the time is of the essence here. So we did contact all our references and let them know that you'd be emailing them or calling them in the last day or two, and they all returned our calls and basically said that have them give us a call. We'd love to talk to them. So
yeah, I was going to say, Alan, one question that I had was just aside from what was identified in the statement of interest, really, what are your biggest concerns? Do you have
you broke up, Tim, again.
Public support as well in hand? Are there any other concerns that really are weighing on you that aren't necessarily we wouldn't know about from reading the proposal requests?
I guess that question would be directed to either the school management, whether or not.
I can answer that. So I think our proposal is pretty clear on what we're trying to accomplish for our students. I think some of the concerns, again, are the actual campus. The entrance and exit is a bottleneck because there are 2 schools on that campus. So just the safety of how to manage this project in the construction phase, something that obviously we're concerned about as we move forward.
Okay, thank you.
That being said, I thank you very much for your time and taking the time to present your proposal and doing a proposal to us. We really appreciate it.
Our pleasure, and thank you for having us. And we hope that we're your choice. We'd love to be working with you on your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you all. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Time.
So I guess we now get to talk amongst ourselves. Becky, is there a process that you wanted to do with the scoring?
I didn't know if people had the chance to do the scoring as they were going along, or if they needed a few minutes to put that together.
Becky, this is just a point of clarification. This is not a webinar, correct?
I believe it is.
Yeah, I believe it is.
What did you ask? I couldn't hear what you asked.
I'm sorry, I just asked if it was a webinar. No one's in the audience.
No.
No.
No, but I know the link was in our agenda if someone did in fact want to participate. It was Jason had the link on the post that he did.
Okay, thank you.
Is this?
Yeah, it's also I'm sure on the town website.
Yep, exactly.
And is this webinar, if you will, something that will be recorded and saved on the town website?
Yeah.
Probably go to YouTube.
Yes.
So that people can go back and review this meeting if they like?
Yes.
Okay.
Just like any other meeting that's been recorded, is my understanding.
So Denise,
Right,
I'll share my perspective. I've not gone through and I've taken copious notes on each firm. What would be helpful for me is just spending the next 5 or 7 to 10 minutes just going through and completing the rating sheets, kind of synthesizing my ideas and my thinking. That'd be helpful for me. I'm not sure if there are others that would want that time as well.
No, I think that's a good idea. I want everybody to be ready, to have had chance to go over that and be ready, and have their thoughts in perspective. So why don't we break for, 10 minutes, Greg, is that enough, do you think?
Yeah, for me, it would be perfect.
Before we go,
and
Greg, one quick question. Was Colliers there did you work with them on the Northborough School?
Yeah,
or
I was
were you?
assistant superintendent. They were, I was there for the construction phase. So Becky and I was there 1 year before Becky, and Becky joined the next year. So Becky and I both have experience with Colliers with the Northborough project.
And
Any
Keith, you
feedback?
Yeah.
The project was on time and under budget. And it was, the complexity of the project really was that we were renovating a building while it was in session. So, you know, it was complex in terms of we were still trying to operate a school while the project took place. And I think overall it went very well in that regard. So I think it was a positive project for the community of Northborough.
Very good. Thank you.
Just another point too, we did Hill International did also work with the town of Southborough on the accelerated repair program for the boiler project at Finn.
And then we have the other company, you know, that did the public safety building, Vertex, and they also did something else, didn't they? Vertex, excuse me. And didn't
They
do
did,
something
they did a facilities conditions assessment for the Neary building as we were starting the MSBA process. Greg, how long ago was that? A year and a half, 2 years ago?
Two and a half years.
2.5 years ago? Mhm.
And they did the Woodward study too, right?
No, I think that one of the gentlemen who works for them was on the Woodward Building Committee. But I think they mentioned a Trottier project.
Yeah, so Steve Theron was a town resident at the time and worked on the building committees for both Woodward and the Trottier expansion in 2003.
I was thinking the Woodward town building thing that Jason was doing for the different departments.
We did. That is accurate.
Oh, Vertex did. That's right. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
so they've in theory, it wasn't for the school, but in theory, they've worked on they know two of the buildings intimately.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And Steve Theron in particular has a very strong knowledge of Trottier Middle School.
All right, I'm gonna mute myself and do my homework real quickly.
So let's take 10 minutes. Let's come back at say 2 minutes past 7. How's that sound, Andrew? Okay, cool.